Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the very first episode of the Indy Directors Roundtable. I'm your host, Launer from Shilling Entertainment. And today we have a couple of special guests with us today. We've got Glenn Triggs and we have Matthew Cleaves, two filmmakers and directors. And we're going to have a bit of a yarn today about a bunch of different topics and things that pop up and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and I'm just going to get you guys to just introduce yourselves. I'm going to get you guys to just give us a little bit of a brief background on yourselves, and if you've done any further study and things like that. I suppose I'll start and then we can go Glenn and then we can go Matt, I suppose. So my name is Launer. I'm a writer, producer, director. I have a film production company called Shilling Entertainment, which has been going for about 20-something years now. We established Shilling Entertainment. It was me and a mate, a good friend of mine, Scott Hadzig. And that was back in high school, I think it was, when we first started, year 7. And we've always been creative and things like that, but I think it's really started to kick off in pretty much at the start of high school. We come up with the name Shilling Entertainment using our initials. So Scott Hadzig, SH, Luke Launer, LL. And then we brainstormed, went through the dictionary again. We were coming up with different ideas, different names. And that's how Shilling was kind of, I think it started off as Shell Entertainment. And then I thought, nah. And then we looked, and then Shill, Shilling. So that's how it all kind of comes. I don't even know if you guys know that or not. I don't know if many people know that. But we just started doing little shorts and little animations. And I used to love we used to have filmmaking classes and things like that. And used to, do all that type of stuff. We really excelled with the filmmaking class. I think we were the only group to get about an A+ for effort. So I knew something I really enjoyed. And I used to love the idea of going and renting out cameras on the weekends and going to film these little shorts and all that type of stuff. And then it just kind of grew, and I've been doing it ever since. And I wasn't really as I grew in that, I wasn't really into film. I just completely forgot about it and things like. I didn't really forget, but I was doing stuff, but it wasn't really my focus at the time. I was doing thinking I was going to do other things like fixing computers or. What else was I going to do? Building was another job aspect that I had. And anyway, film kind of, I saw this banner one day when I was doing some research. I might have been looking up film equipment or something. And then I saw this banner on the right-hand side. And it's had a one week practical filmmaking course. So, and I bookmarked it. I kept looking at it. Anyway, I said to Dad, I was talking to him on the phone about it, and I said, there's this filmmaking course I'm kind of interested in doing. And he said, just go for it. He said, you've always been into that type of stuff. Just go for it and do it. So I booked that. I went down. I met some people down there. I ended up, we put this film together, this film over the week. We had to write the script. We had to organise the cast and the crew, and we went and shot this movie. We all took in turns of doing different jobs. I directed a little scene for a bit and things like that, and we put it together. And then I was coming back, I stayed in the backpackers place down there, and then I decided after the week I'd come back. I was on the V-Line train back to Bendigo, and I started to write my first short film, which was called No Control. And then I used the people that I worked with on the course to actually shoot this film. And then after that, I decided then to tackle my first feature film and things like that, which was called The Count, about a home invasion caught on camera. And then we did that, and then I've just kind of kept going and stuff like that. So that's how it all started for me, pretty much. So anyway, but so it's up to you. You Glenn, up to you, mate.
Okay, I did not know that about Shilling Entertainment, the 2 L's, like Luke Launer. That's kind of awesome. I thought it was just a reference to shilling. I don't even know what shilling is. So that's cool. It's got
well, it's just because I'll tell you, it was something about so it started off as Shell, Shell Entertainment, and with Scott Hadzig except Luke Launer. I'm like, well, you're not including me, are you? So we're like, nah, let's go back to the drawing board. Anyway, then we're looking through the dictionary at different words that we can use, and then shill or shilling or something popped up. I'm like, oh, cool. What can we fill those other letters in to make up a word? So it ended up being Scott Hadzik, including Luke Launer, individual nice guys. So I'm like, so we ended up using that as the name, and it's just stuck, and I haven't changed it since. Like everyone's like, oh, you know, because Scott's obviously left, and I took over and things like that. And then, I've just kept the name. And they said, you ever thought about changing it? And I'm like, nah, I'm not changing it. It's iconic. So
I think it's good to keep it. Keep it as long as you can. I was like that with my company, Dark Epic Films. I was just in the car going somewhere one day as a kid. I was like, I want to make movies that are a bit dark and kind of epic. Dark Epic. And it just stuck ever since. And it hasn't...
Yeah.
It's still kind of cool, I guess, maybe. I don't know. It still kind of works, but yeah, so sorry about me. So yeah, my name is Glenn Triggs, and I'm a feature film director, writer, producer, editor, all that sort of stuff, I guess. Similar thing to you, Luke. I sort of started in high school. A friend of mine got a video camera when I was in, I think grade 6. I remember I was walking with my friend. We used to hang around down at a creek near my parents' house, and my friend's like, "Oh, my dad's gonna buy me this video camera for Christmas," and I was like, "Oh, that's." Like all of a sudden, like this whole, like my brain at that split second, my mind was like, we're going to make a volcano movie. We're going to make a karate movie. We're like all these crazy ideas just erupted. Yeah. I was always sort of doing little theater shows at school anyway. I was always kind of like, get kids together before class and I'd direct like a little scene or a play. Like I would do that like all the time in primary school. I used to love, it just came really naturally for some reason. I was always really bad at acting. I could never act. But directing was always a thing that I really enjoyed for some reason, not knowing that I was directing, I guess, at the time. And so, my friend got this camera and we just started making movies, and they were like really crazy, like offensive movies and funny movies and scary movies. And I just sort of kept going with it, I guess, similar to what you just said before. I just, just kept buying new equipment and computers and editing machines and cameras, and I just loved the process so much. It just entertained me, like as a thing. It never really made heaps of money necessarily, but it was always just heaps and heaps of fun. And I just haven't stopped. And each time I just have an idea and I'm like, I'm going to make a movie on that. I'll spend a couple of years on it and just make a film. And I've just sort of kept doing that. So I just love it, really. That's sort of why I do it, basically. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, very good. And what about you, Matt?
That's great. First off, thanks for organising this, Luke. This is awesome to have this chat with you and Glenn. I started out in high school watching, I just remember Foxtel was like this premium video service when I was growing up. I don't know if it's still around as much. And to get the internet, you had to get Foxtel, and we got it free for a month just to get the cable. And I remember watching the behind the scenes of Jumanji on it. And that was the first time I ever saw how a film was made. This is before DVDs and behind the scenes features. I remember thinking, this is cool. I never knew. It's like a magic show. And the thing was, it took me so long before I ever got access to a video camera. So all through high school, now that I had this passion for filmmaking, I was constantly writing scripts anytime I could. Once I'd written the scripts, I'd start storyboarding scenes. They'd always be inspired by something I'd be seeing at the cinema. So it'd be like a science fiction epic or some sort of detective thriller. Maybe a high school project would be like design a book cover. So I'd write like a 60-page book with 30 different characters. And the whole time I was thinking I'd love to be making these one day. And then I didn't really get access to a camera until I went to film school.
Yeah.
Because at the time they were $100,000. I know there were sort of VHS cameras around, but even they were too expensive. So I spent a long time just like coming up with ideas. And it's funny looking back on it because they're rough, but some of the ideas are really interesting because you've kind of got no filter on what you're coming up with. It's like full creativity.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is I went from like writing scripts all the time and storyboarding and thinking a lot about films. And like the first time I entered a film into Trot Fest, it was like 3 months writing this short film that seemed so basic. I don't know why it took so long. And then, shoot it for a couple of days, edit it in like 2 days. And the funny thing is, ever since then, ever since the first film, I feel a lot of my shorts have been really quick to make. Come up with the idea on the morning, shoot it that afternoon, edit the next day, and just like have this real freedom.
Days of innocence, isn't it? Everything was innocent back then, wasn't it? Like, you know, we had skeleton crews. We've all, you know, we're in the trenches, aren't we? Like at the start there, you know, we have to hire cameras from the schools. We have to work with our little friends. You know, that's where I got into acting, because I had to act in my own, you know, my own films at the start there and stuff. So, and we've had to be the jack of all trades pretty much. So,
well, that's the thing. If you wanted to make a film back then, when I first started making them, it's like, well, no one's going to fill any of the roles. You've got to write it, you've got to produce it, you've got to direct it, you've got to shoot it, you've got to edit it, you've got to do all of it, and hopefully have a friend that can act in it.
That's right, isn't it? Yeah. So, were you like that too, Glenn? With did you know, you said you didn't really like acting and things like that, but did you end up acting in any of your
all the time? Yeah, I was acting all the time in movies, and it was just, I didn't really care back then. But to do serious acting now, I really avoided it at all costs. But I remember the same thing, like going out and shooting, like that morning, you'd come up with an idea and you go out and shoot a movie, and then you'd edit it like that day or the next day. I used to get like 2 VCRs and stick them together and plug like a CD player into it. I remember riding to my friend's house and borrowing his copy of Alien Resurrection on VHS so I could rip the music off the credits and put it over my horror film. And I thought it was like so much fun. And I remember the first time it took me to edit a movie in 2 days, I hated it. I was like, this should not take longer than a day. This should be done today. And then, you know, and then all of a sudden a movie took like a week to make, and then a movie took like 6 months, and then it took like a year or two. And I was like, this just gets harder and harder. Like, it just doesn't get easier. And it's right. It's that age of innocence, of that really, really fun time of just going into a forest with your friends and a couple of bikes and some cameras and just like making it up as you go. Like, that was all you did. And it was heaps of fun. It was something very, and it was such a new technology. Like, no one else before us, really. There wasn't a generation that had access to cameras like we did. And so we just went out and just made all sorts of crazy stuff. Like, it was awesome. Really, really fun.
Good times, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, I just I sometimes will run past some of my older stuff one day, and I'm like, oh, and I look at it and I go, with how much more advanced you are now, and you look at that and you go, sometimes you wish you were back there just doing that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, with all the pressures of with everything. You know what I mean? Yeah. Those were just good times. You know what I mean? Like, they were really fun times just doing.
It did nothing really matter. It wasn't like, this doesn't matter if it's good or bad or anything. It was just,
that's right.
And I remember the first time I saw when mini DV first came out, those little tiny DV tapes. I couldn't believe how clear it was. I remember like a kid at our school had used the camera in video production, and he shot a movie, and me and my friends were like, whoa, like, look how clear that is. And it's obviously really bad now.
My friend had one. Yeah.
And it was crazy. My
mate had one, and that, it was, oh, it's awesome, isn't it? Yeah. Just how far technology's gone from VHS through to DVD to Blu-ray. It's insane. I can't keep up. It's incredible.
I'm really curious how, you know, the new
Well, nowadays all you need is a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Nah, they were awesome. Yeah. Now, have you guys done any further study have you done further study on film at all or anything like that?
Yeah, I did. So at the VCA. Oh, sorry. Okay. I did a year at the VCA. Just,
there you go.
Like video production and stuff like that. And I found I didn't really learn anything, which is kind of a weird thing to say. I found I got to meet people. That was probably the biggest thing I took away from that, getting to meet people in the industry. That was wonderful. But in terms of actually learning, I've learned everything just from doing it, just from going out and learning how to, you know, get money together and people and crew and equipment and go out and shoot things like that. So
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. The school, I didn't learn. The school didn't teach me anything. I didn't learn myself, basically. But it was a good experience. But yeah, and other than that, it was just watch a lot of movies and a lot of documentaries about making of movies. That was my schooling, really, I guess.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah, they don't do that much now, do they? With the behind the scenes, and they used to. I remember DVDs when they used to come out. They used to be chock-a-block full of special features. Now, I love that type of stuff, and like I just think, you know, how you just get a movie now and then, you know, they used to take pride in their works. Like, you remember that new car smell You know, when you smell DVDs for the first time and then you see the labels on it and the books and all the special features and all that type of shit, 2 discs and things like that. And then they started to cut all the labeling out, so you just get a bland, you know, Castaway, and it's like, you know, or whatever, and it's just like, you know, where's the fun in that? And then they went streaming, so it's just the movie now, and I don't know, there's a part of me that just, you know, secretly loves like value for money. You go in, you buy something that's you can be proud of, and that. So that's why I think that's what I've tried to do that with all my films and stuff like that. I want them to see all that type of stuff. I don't know if you guys if you got the same attitude or not, but
I used to buy films. I used to buy a film when it would be released, and then if they'd release a version later with like a second disc with bonus features, I'd buy a second copy just so I could watch the bonus features. Which is funny though, because you can still buy DVDs. I'm sure they've still got behind the scenes. I know Disney Plus have their behind the scenes on the streaming service. It's still around. If anything, they sometimes feel like they're the quality of a film when I watch some of the making of the Avengers stuff or the Marvel stuff.
We can't, but like I said, getting back to it too, you can't beat like with the study and stuff like that. You can't beat hands-on practical experience in there. Like, it's something that, you know, you're only going to know once you get out there and you start experiencing these things. There's only so much that film schools and classes and all that can kind of teach and things like that.
Oh yeah, I didn't answer that question. So
do you
want me to come back to the uni stuff?
Yeah. Go, take it away.
Sorry. So I did, straight out of high school, I did a 3-year multimedia bachelor degree. And I found it was interesting in that you would do some film stuff, you do some website stuff, you do some graphic design, you do some journalism. You covered a lot of different topics, but there was also topics I didn't really like computer science and some really technical stuff. But it was also a way to work out what I really liked and didn't like. And for me, there was the last class I did was a documentary class where you had to make a documentary. And I just interviewed some people who had done some undercover police work, and I'd blacked out their faces, lit them from behind, just sort of did that sort of stuff. And then I found that I was really proud of that documentary because it was like 45 minutes long. And my dad was doing some business work with a filmmaker at the time, and he showed the DVD to him. And that guy's advice was go to do a postgraduate film class to learn the technical stuff. Because, you know, now that I look back on that documentary, like the edits are sometimes halfway through a word, the shot's not very nice, the story building of the story is not that engaging. And I found that going to film school was really helpful, especially the postgraduate, because everyone there is making films each semester, whether it's, you know, you start off using a script that already exists and you're writing, producing, directing, editing, shooting at least one of those films. Each person's doing each role at some stage. So, you know, I'd be shooting Luke's film, I'd be editing Glenn's film, and then I'm directing my own film. And, you know, we're all working on different projects. Yeah. I found that hands-on experience in a safe environment at a university where, you know, no one's there, like they're not necessarily going to be released. You're all there to learn, you're helping each other, you've got the teachers to help. I actually found that really useful, at least for the technical stuff. So it was enough to come out of it and be ready and confident to shoot, edit, direct, all those sort of roles. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit of a funny story. Going back to the days when we were shooting films with our mates at school and things like that. You guys probably find this funny. So we would hire the cameras from the school, and then we'd go in and we'd use the sick bay for like our set. And that we were doing a detective story, so we had the boss behind the desk and things like that. And the main cop was to come in, and they were going to have a talk. There was some dialogue that we wrote. So so what I'd do is I'd set up the camera for the, you know, I'm shooting the chief of police behind the desk, and I'm filming him like that, right? He'd say his line, and then I'd pause the camera, and instead of just doing all of his dialogue one after another and like in consecutive, like what I'd do is I'd flip the camera to me, and I'd do record my line. I flip it back to that and set up the shot again and film him, and I just do that. So I had no idea what I was doing. I thought that was normal. As I went to do this 1 week practical film course, I realised then they was just setting up their shot and doing their whole lot, and then flipping the camera and then doing that. And I'm like, oh my God. So that's basic things like that. That's I picked up on that. I learned stuff from that. And I learned about, I think the most important thing I think I gained from doing that 1 week practical film course down in Melbourne was called Sydney Film Base. And they had a tutor come down from Sydney, and there was a bunch of people there. It was the meeting those people, like networking, getting to know some people that could help me with my films later on, and that, and if they were willing in that. And then what, I said one thing leads to another and things like that. I think networking is very important, especially at the start, at the very beginning, and that. And then I was learning how to do scripts, like writing in scripts and organizing things and things like that. And then I just went off and I did my own films, and I learnt stuff as I went there. And then that's all I did. And then there's been other courses I have done as well. I've done just to fine tune some stuff. But I think, like Glenn said, I think the best thing you gain is from actually getting out there in the world and actually doing it, getting out there and actually making your films and learning as you go and things like that. Like, there's only so much schools can teach you. They can fine tune stuff and things like that. But I think the real experience is getting out there, actually getting your hands dirty and making films and things like, I think that's the best. So
definitely, because those quick films you do for fun, like Glenn was mentioning before, where you write it that morning, shoot it that afternoon, edit it in a day, you learn something new every single time you make one of those films.
Yeah.
Whether it's something to do with the way you shoot it, the way you edit it, anything, you'll learn something new every time. I still learn something new every single video.
Yeah.
I think the lessons are a lot harder to learn as well, because like when you put pride into something and you go out and try it and it fails, you really learn that lesson. If someone just gives you a sheet of paper and says, just tick the boxes you think are the correct answers, you're not learning anything really. You're just memorizing stuff. But you're out there and you're like, oh man, I missed that shot today, or that sound wasn't recorded properly, or that lighting's awful, or anything that goes wrong. It's a much better lesson to learn. You feel it differently to just something in a book. I think that's how I felt anyway.
Yeah. No, that's right. Now, all right. So, I'm just thinking. I'm just reading these questions I got. So, how did you guys kind of like get into doing film? Like, I know actually we've talked a little bit about that, haven't we? So, we might talk about so your ideas and your inspiration. Where does it come from? Like, what inspires you guys? Where do you get your inspiration to start working on these films that you make and things like that?
You're right to go first. Is that all right?
Yeah. You go, Glenn. Yeah.
I always find it's an emotion that usually drives me. I'll think of a scene, or I'll listen to some music or something, and I'll feel this particular emotion. And if I can sort of, that's what drives me. It's never like the whole film. It's never the process. It's always like that one scene or that one moment, usually at the end of the films I'm making. And I'll just get really caught up with that particular emotion. I'll be like, I really want to try to capture that. I want to lead to that point and get that. And everything I do is just to get to that point. And it's a really slow, laborious process. But it's usually that. And that usually comes from dreams and ideas and music a lot of the time. But it's always that one little bit of a story, like, I want to see that scene where this happens. And, that's really where my inspirations come from, I think. That's what I've learned over the years. It's always that particular emotion. It's usually an emotional emotion. It's never like a happy emotion, or it's usually a sad emotion most of the time for me. But that's what I'm trying to capture, and that's sort of where my inspirations come from. It's always just how I think, and I'll sit there and I'll be thinking, oh, what if I listen to music over and over again and be like, I could make that scene work. I think we could do it this way, and I'll write on that, and I'll work on that, and just get obsessed with one scene and one emotion and build a film around it. That's what usually happens for me.
I'm actually very glad you said that, Glenn, because that was exactly what I was going to say. Sorry to cut you off, Matt. I'll talk to you in a sec. yeah, it usually starts with an idea, doesn't it? Something that in particular you want to see on the screen. Something you want to really film, and you want to really see that on the screen. And I think pretty much everything you've said is pretty much how I go about it too. It usually starts with something in particular, an idea, or a particular idea or scene that I just want to film, and then it just kind of I build around that, and stuff like that, which is really cool. So yeah,
I'm curious, Glenn. Just if I was good.
Okay.
I was going to ask you, Glenn, though, do you find if you have the emotion as the idea from the start, and then when you go through the filming and the editing, is the emotion, do you find it's still there in that final film?
Always. Yeah, I always find it's usually the most powerful bit of the movie, and it's usually just the bit where people are like, oh yeah, the movie was good, but that ending, that got me. Like we had a screening last night for this movie I'm working on at the moment, Ancestry Road, and it was. I got very, very emotional last night. I lost, and everyone else did, which was wonderful. But it was just having people see the film. It's all about my mum that passed away, so it's all about that sort of stuff. And we had a lot of family and friends there and that, so it was very much an emotional experience. And I'd seen the film like 50 times, and I'd been mostly okay most of the time, but last night I just lost it. So I feel like I've got I probably look like I'm hungover today or something. I can feel it at the moment.
Well, it's very, very personal in that. Yeah.
So the movie was just about that ending scene for me. It just was an ending sequence, and I was like, I think that it's going to really be a powerful moment. I was going to build a whole movie around it. So that's what happened, really.
We don't want to spoil the ending, but can you talk about the emotion?
It would probably spoil the ending, I think, if I talked about the emotion.
Yeah.
It was a very emotional sort of sequence. There's a lot of different moving bits to that sequence, and it took a long time to sort of design the ending for the film, and to really, because you never know what's going to work and what's not going to work in a film. You can sort of have really good ideas, but once you show it to other people, all of a sudden you notice things that people are laughing at moments they shouldn't laugh at, or they're reacting to moments that you didn't realize were interesting or funny, and all that sort of stuff. So. But last night we pretty much got it spot on, I think. Like I had done a lot of tests before, just with very small groups of people seeing the film, but we had about maybe 60 people there last night, and everyone got it. I think everyone really got it, so it was great. But it was I was very surprised that I lost it. But then everyone's come up to me.
It's always scary, isn't it?
Yeah, well, everyone had.
Oh wow, that's really, especially for such a.
That was interesting. Like
especially for such a personal film to have that sort of reaction.
I think it's good to make personal films like that.
Yeah, well, it's very scary, isn't it? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, we've got a bit of a delay. I think we're all talking over each other.
Yeah, that's right. I was just saying, Glenn, it's and Matt, it's when you're having those screenings, it's just like there's all these things running through your head. You're not sure how they're going to gauge certain things, and when you do hear a bit of a laugh or something like that, you're getting some form of response. And when they don't do that, it's just like you're trying to guess like what they're thinking all the time, and and stuff like that. So I'm glad that there was some emotions poured out last night in different ways and things like that. So you've got some validation, I suppose. You can gauge how the film kind of went just by that. Yeah,
everyone sort of got something different out of it, which is really interesting. Like people would come up to me and they were really upset about someone that they lost or something that had happened in their family. Like there's different elements in the film that they took from it, which is really interesting, because I thought everyone would just be upset about that one moment, but everyone's like, oh, that bit when this happened, that reminded me of this. And it was really fascinating actually that everyone got something completely different out of it on all different levels. So that was good, I guess, but I didn't expect that, I guess. So
yeah.
It feels like a good sign.
Yeah, that's very good. All right, so
what was the original thing about where ideas come from?
Oh yeah, did we?
Do you want me to come back to them, or should we move on?
Yeah, have you talked about where your ideas and No, you haven't yet, have you? No.
I haven't. Do you want me to keep coming back to the topic?
Yeah. Talk about it while we're doing it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I like the flow of where that went, but I'm not sure whether to bring it back. But I'll bring it back to ideas. Right.
No, I'm getting stuff out of like when you're talking. I'm pulling stuff out of it and stuff. So that's good.
So for me, ideas, I feel like it's something you're constantly doing, and I'm sure both of you do this as well. Is you hear a story from a friend and you write it down because that could be interesting, or you meet someone and you think that could be an interesting character, and you don't know where but you keep all these little ideas somewhere. For me, it's all digital now. It used to be books. And then perhaps you'll loop them together, or perhaps one of the ideas will grow into something massive. That's where, like, for me, it's just like this constant thing. But then I also find putting restrictions on yourself can sometimes you can come up with some of the best, at least for short films, you can come up with some really cool ideas because you're forced into a particular path. And for me, the best examples are those 48-hour film competitions, which I know Luke's done. I don't know if you've done them, Glenn, where you're given like the theme, you're given a theme, a genre, an item you have to put in and a line on like a Friday at 7 p.m. And then by Sunday, 7 p.m., 48 hours later, you're delivering a finished film. And I just find with those, you kind of just get whatever friends you can get together in whatever location. And then once you get those 3 or 4 things, it's kind of like, what can we make? And you can't overthink it. You just go with it. And I find they've been some of my favorite films to work on, having restrictions like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember there was a couple of ideas that, like, there was some mates would suggest ideas to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that, and then I've written it down. I got notebooks. I'm old school. I don't go digital. It does something with my head. I love the. There's something about pen and paper. It's personal. I've got books at home. I've got chock a block full of shit, ideas, character names, everything. Like I don't know how you guys go about it, but I've got books of just ideas and inspiration and things I've written down and character names and all that. And I think what I like to do too when I also make films too is because I have to look at it with the technical. I have to look at it in the technical sides too, like locations. I try to limit how many locations I go to, so I've got control over it and things like that. And you know, so I think that's. And then I bet so like with the count, I didn't want to go to many different locations and things like that. I just wanted to just have it centralized in a house, so I've got control over it, and then I can just work around it and things like that. So I think I did that with Snap Factory too. You know, it was only minimal locations with Snap Factory. You know, we shot it in the garage, and then you've been to Brian's place, Matt, and you know that he's got his house right next door, and then we used a lot of his house interior as well. Like we used the living room for the scene between Michael and the psychiatrist, and we used his office for Brian Pittaway's character, Dr. Lambert. We used his office there for that scene. And then we used the shed to do most of the snap stuff. So a lot of the basically the bulk of the movie was filmed in this one location. So that's when I make movies, I try to look at that. I don't try and I don't want to be going to like 50 different locations. I want to have centralized where I've got control over it and things like that. And then there was a few other places we actually had to go to, like we went to Sunbury to Brian's work down there. That he worked at a depot, so we used that for the cop shop. And we used, we went to Bendigo because I know Bendigo very well. I've got a lot of friends here. I was using my friends' houses for certain scenes and things like that. So you basically, that's how I kind of do it anyway. I try to make movies where I just look at the technical side and I just try and limit how many places I've got to go, and I build stories around that. So that's how I kind of go about it. There was another thing I was going to say.
Can I ask you a question about that, Luke, if that's all right?
Yeah. Go for
it. When you say you've just used like one location, you've sort of planned to make it easier on yourself. That's how I've been as well. Had you learned that from films you've done previously? Were you like, oh, we've traveled so much, we've only got so little done. So if I was just to use one location, is that something you'd learned along the way, or did you just thought of that as a technical thing?
No. I just think about this prior. I think because I'm a jack of all trades, I do everything. I write, I produce, I do all that type of stuff. I try to make my life easier by doing that, if that makes sense. So it's nothing. I never really thought about it. It just kind of happened that way. But now I look about it, and I'm just doing it for convenience, pretty much. I just try to make my life easier and things like that. So I think that's kind of where it comes in doing that. Because I know I look at a lot of filmmakers in Melbourne, like you guys and stuff like that, and they go out and they make movies and they go to 50 different locations and things like that. Where because I'm here in Bendigo and I'm and Dimboola and all that type of stuff, there's really is that I just try to, like I said, I just basically try to minimize, make my life easier for technical reasons and things like that. And yeah.
Do you also find though, you think, because you've got a script often, and you think, will the story be any better if we travel 2 hours away, or can we just film it in Brian's kitchen?
Well, I don't know. It's just weird. I don't know exactly how it works, how the human brain works, and things like. I know like there's some very creative films that are shot in one location. Like look at Saw, for example. Like that's Lee Wannell and James Wan. When they filmed it in one room, and it was highly effective. They didn't have to go to many different locations, and a lot of those locations that they filmed that movie in were centralized. They were in the same area. I actually watched the making of. And they shot that room. They set it all up. They did all the walls and everything like that in this little thick area. And then just out and around the corner, like down the hall and around the corner, there was a staircase, like a hatch. And they'd go down into this underground cellar thing, and that's where they did that scene with where that bloke's like in that cage of wire and his all that type of stuff. So they used a lot of spots around that area to do the movie as well, which is really cool. So I think it just comes down to creative. You just got to be creative, isn't it? Like you can afford to do it in one location, just be creative around it. So
there's also something, I don't know, I don't want to change it too far from that, but there's also like I've worked on TV shows where we've traveled to an exotic location for a week as part of our 7-week schedule. And sometimes they'll use like 30 seconds of what we shot in like a full week in that scene, or sometimes they won't even use most of it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you've also got to be confident enough to know when to cut some of that stuff out, even though you know how much effort's gone into it.
Yeah.
And that probably helps on projects like that where the editors weren't there and they don't know how hard it was for us to get those scenes and what we were fighting with the weather or whatever.
I think too. I think it comes into like with the budget too, like your finance and that. By doing more means you're adding more pressure to yourself as well. You know what I mean? Like you more money, more. So yeah, I don't know, because I try and work on like a lot of my films are around the $30,000 mark, $40,000, something like that. Like I've just, because I do everything and I don't rely on too many people. I don't have a producer. I don't do this and that. I have to think like that. And I think that's where I gain all these. I put a lot more pressure on myself, but I think I gain those skills, those valuable skills. And I think that helps as well. That makes sense?
I think a lot of the audience aren't watching thinking this is only filmed in one location. If you can mix it up as long as the story is interesting.
Yeah.
And there's less pressure on yourself.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen that movie? I think it's from the early 90s called Cube. It's like a science fiction
awesome
film. And it's
that's
like
a very good film.
They built this one room and they just used it for every single scene, and it's like one of the most amazing films I've ever seen.
Oh, another movie's like The Platform.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Netflix.
Oh yeah, Platform was great. I love that.
Yeah.
Just simple ideas that you've just never thought of, and you can go, I could make a movie like that. I love films like that. Love it.
Yeah. No. Anyway, there's another thing, little off topic, but you did talk about it, Matt, about the 48-hour film festivals and things like that. I have done a couple. Never again. Never again. It was a good experience, but never again, because I had a day job. I was working as a journalist at Dimboola in the banner office there. Anyway, this was at, I think, around 2011, I think it was. Anyway, I just got my car and I was driving down to Melbourne and I was doing all that type of stuff. Actually, no, that was the very first time I ever driven down to Melbourne. I got my license because I needed it for the journalist job in Dimboola. I used to walk to work every day in Bendigo, an hour to work and stuff like that. So I didn't need it. Anyway, as I moved back to the country, I needed a car. So I got this job and he said, "Do you have a car?" And I said, I bullshitted to him. I said, "Yeah, no, I've got a car." And my grandmother was driving me to the work every day, but I needed the job. Anyway, I needed to get my car. I got my car. The next day, I'm down in Melbourne, traveling over the Westgate Bridge, and I'm thinking to myself, "Am I really fucking doing this?" Because there was a 48-hour film festival, and I really wanted to do it. And here I am, like, got me license. The next day, I'm traveling over the Westgate Bridge with no confidence at all, just just wanting to go and do this 48-hour film festival. We rocked up. We worked tirelessly. We wrote the script. We went there. We shot it. We we organised it. All that. Oh my god! In 48 hours, and then we're putting this thing together. And we just missed the deadline because there's something to do with the something happened. The edit stuff. Something happened. I remember. Anyway, we were driving like a bastard to try and drop this thing in early. Anyway, we got there. He said, no, we can't take it. And I'm like, fuck's sake, all that for nothing.
Whoa, they don't accept it?
No, they didn't accept it. Anyway, oh my god! And then I reckon I only had about less than 6 hours sleep over that whole 48 hours. I was a zombie. I'm driving home from Melbourne to Dimble, which is four and a bit hour drive, and then I have to work all day in the banner office. And there was people coming in the office. And I was like, I was just out of my mind. I'm like, never again. I can't do that again. Nah.
Yeah, far out.
It was good, but it was good. It was a good experience, but nah, never again. I can't work like that under that.
No, the pressure, the no sleep that's a killer. We did a movie I think it was in 2007 called Launer, and we shot the whole thing on, I think it was on Super 16. It was like on film. This is just before film was sort of kicked out the door pretty much, and it was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my whole life. And I learned from that. I learned, not to do all night shoots for like a week. Like it was just a killer. And we were like renting trucks and had to drive them back to pick up other trucks, and we're just no sleep. We're up all night, sometimes filming 2 minutes, sometimes filming 10 minutes of stuff, traveling to like 18 different locations. And it was insane. It was just it was just the no sleep thing. The film itself was pretty easy to make, but the no sleep was just awful. So yeah,
it's brutal in that. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can do it for a couple of days, but a full week would definitely drain you.
Oh yeah. There's a lot to consider in that. Like, yeah, really, really tests you.
It broke some people. Some people just left.
So guys, I reckon.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Jesus. I reckon we'll get on to the next question. So I'm going to talk. So we've talked about ideas and inspiration and things like that. So we're going to talk a little bit about finance and funding. So how do you guys go about funding your projects, your presentations?
I'll say every project's different. I find sometimes you get money, sometimes you get no money. Sometimes it's your own money, sometimes it's other people's money. It just depends on where you are, right place, right time. That's what I've discovered over the last 20 years or so. And there's all different avenues. I think government funding's never assisted me in any way, shape or form. Unfortunately, I've applied for many things and never got anything in that sense. I put a fair bit of my own money into it early on. But every film's different. Some films I've made for $0. Some films I've made for over $1 million. It changes every single project. So it just depends on where you are at the right time. And you need to recognize when you're at the right time, because sometimes you'll be sitting there in a meeting, you'll be like, oh, hang on. Oh, I need to say something now because this is my opportunity. And you need to sort of be very aware of that a lot of the time, because you can miss things. I've missed things in the past and I'm like, I should have said something. I didn't say anything and I've missed out on, whatever. So, right place, right time. And the only place to be in the right place, the right time is to always be in a lot of places, because they just and wait for the right time, I guess. So, but it's difficult. It's always difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, some movies have cost $0 before, and I love making those movies as well. It's just, money always makes things a lot more stressful and complicated, and heaps more paperwork. So much more paperwork.
Yeah, it does.
Mountains of paperwork. Pressure. So, but yeah.
Yeah, the expectation goes up and that, yeah. So
sorry. I was going to say, because I remember when I watched 41 from memory, Glenn, it was you shooting it. It was basically just your time, no real cost. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think we spent maybe about $5,000 on that whole film, mostly for camera equipment. That's just when the Canon 5D had just come out, which is like a huge sort of jump for indie filmmakers, because everyone could get that, that depth of field sort of look for their videos.
And a glide cam from memory?
No, I think I just put it on a tripod and just walked with a tripod. That was our Steadicam, because if you get a big enough chunky enough tripod,
I do remember that bit. Yeah.
Or you put your tripod on the two front legs and you slowly just push it in. You get like a really nice sort of tracking shot. It's like a quick way to do it. But
I think that was it. I think I watched your making of.
Yeah, I remember it looking so good.
It's
I think wasn't the very first shot you did was the gas station, wasn't it? Like you feel going into the petrol
yeah, it was.
station.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we shot at the gas station.
Oh,
Yeah, that movie's done really well online. Like that was a really weird film because we entered a lot of festivals. And it's the only film I've ever entered into festivals that's almost won every festival we entered, which never has happened to me ever since. Like I think Comet Kids and Dreams of Paper and Ink got into like basically nothing. But 40 for some reason, and my theory on that was that because that was when DVD screeners were around for film festivals, so people would actually get a DVD and they'd sit down and watch it. Now it's just like they've probably got like a list of like 1,000 films, and they've got to be like, all right, I like the name of that. I might watch 5 minutes of that film, and that's in the festival, or someone famous is in that film, we'll choose that film, sort of thing. So I think the selection process has changed over the years, but 41 did really well, and we shot that. I took almost like it was over a year, I think, of filming, but we were shooting just weekends, like maybe 1 weekend a month, maybe 3 weekends a month, just depends on who was free. Chris, who was in the film, he was from Geelong, so he was traveling up every day to be in our film. Every time we shot, so he was driving. Jeez. I think he said at the end of it, he'd figured out he'd driven almost from Melbourne to Paris and back. That's how many like kilometers he'd covered during production or something, which is crazy. But that was a really fun film to make. That was just a interesting idea, and a lot of people just it's done really well online. It's become like this little sort of cult time travel movie. We've made it into like top 10 and top 20 like time travel movies, which is crazy. Like to be compared to movies like Back to the Future and the Time Machine is insane. Not that they, they've just been little internet pieces, but
so overall that was a very long film to do, was it? Like that took you ages to make that
couple
movie,
of probably 2 years, maybe just over 2 years, I think. And it never felt that long when we were making it. I think the Comet Kids probably took the longest. That was about 3 years of pretty sort of serious production, but 41 was just about 2 years, I think. And that was just a really simple idea of just a guy just goes into a hole in the floor and he comes out a day earlier, and just tried to sort of figure out what interesting things can we do with that. And not everything I thought of made it into the film. I had all sorts of ideas that we didn't even come close to even doing. We sort of ended up, if you've got no money, you can't really do heaps and heaps. So we had to cut corners on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it sort of added to the, I don't know, the handmade sort of feeling of that movie, I guess. It feels very sort of, is cheap the right word? I don't know if cheap's the right word, but it's got a very sort of indie, very, very indie, like no budget sort of feel to it. But I think Heath's music really helped.
And it still looks very good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Heath Brown, who did the soundtrack, he's done a few of my soundtracks, and his music, I thought, just took it up a notch. It just sort of made it, it gave it that professionalism that we didn't necessarily have with the production of it. So, it was just, we were discovering, right, as we were making that, we were discovering things. Like, we didn't know how the ending was going to play out. I had a couple of ideas for it, but I didn't really know how it was going to work. And initially, it was a very, very cryptic ending. It didn't really make sense. And most people were like, oh, yeah, that was good, but I have no idea what happened at the end. And then I had a producer friend, Fiona. She just had a very small note. She's like, just take out this shot and put this shot in. I was like, okay, I'll try it. And then all of a sudden, people are like, oh, this is amazing. Like this, oh my God, this movie, it's so good. But it took a long time. I think I put that movie on like a torrent site because initially we had a very small screening of it in some cinemas in the States. And then I had the rights back to it after about a year, I think it was. And I put it on like Pirate Bay or something. I'm like, I need to get this movie out. There's no other options for me at the time. And people started to download it, and it started getting really good reviews, like on torrent sites, which is kind of weird, but good.
Yeah.
And then I thought I'll put it on YouTube, and YouTube was just sort of a new thing. You could put like, all of a sudden you could put like, a 2-hour movie on YouTube that was like extended their time. So everyone's chucking up like films and stuff. And now it's like, I think you put like a 48-hour movie on there or something now, which is nuts. So
the algorithms probably weren't as strict back then too. Yeah.
And it just did really
well.
That's
such a funny way to distribute a film.
Yeah, just went really
torrent it. A torrent site distribution plan. This is a good example of that.
Well, at least it's getting it out there, isn't it? That's the main thing.
Well, I just wanted to push it because it was just sitting on my computer. I'm like, I think this is a good movie, but I can't do anything with it. And DVD plays, like, distributors didn't want to touch it because it was just too, I don't know, they just didn't think anything of it, I guess. So we just got very lucky.
DLSR, and that was very that was the new phase back then, wasn't it? Like, everyone wanted to change over to filming on 5Ds and all that type of stuff. So
and cameras are just smaller and smaller now and really great. So
oh, I can't keep up, mate. Just as you think you settled on something new pops out.
Every week there's a new update on a new camera with a new lens. It's ridiculous.
4K.
But
So I'm going to ask you, Glenn. When you first started, so you're obviously seeking out funds now because you've probably built yourself up to it and things like you've got something to show for it and things like that. But at the early stages, did you do a lot of self funding? Because I know I'm very curious to know if you've done any self funding or crowdfunding or anything like that. Because our circumstances are different. Like I live home here, and this is how I'm able to do a lot of my own self funding and things like that. You're obviously probably got a mortgage of, you've got it makes it harder to do that. So have you done any self funding and things like that, and
I think
and things like that?
I remember getting bank loans when I was really young to make films. I think I was still in my almost late teens, and I'd walk into like the bank and say, I need $10,000 to make this short film. And they were like, do you want 20,000? Like, it was so easy back then. It was crazy. Now it's like, I can't even borrow $5,000 to redo our kitchen and stuff. It's nuts. But back then they were just chucking out money because they knew they'd make a profit out of it. And that's before the financial crisis stuff happened, I guess. But I've funded a fair bit of my films, and I've co-funded films and all that sort of stuff. It's always, every project's always very different. And I always try to figure out, and because I'm doing a lot of the editing and post myself, that saves a lot of money as well. I've got my own sort of studio sort of set up here at home, so most of the stuff happens at home. Really,
you find it hard to get funding through through like the Screen Australia, those type of funding bodies and things like that, because I get this impression. I don't know if you got, like, I spoke to someone because I went down to do some. They were auditioning for the Dressmaker, the movie with
Kate Winslet.
Kate Winslet, and that they actually filmed it around Horsham and Jung. They filmed at the Jung Football Oval, and they filmed around that area. They were holding like auditions for extras. Anyway, I went down there. I got a speeding fine that day. No, I didn't get a speeding fine that day. I was travelling, and my P plate fell off the back of my car, and the cop come past me and he picked me up with the camera, and I ended up getting a fine. So that was a bit of fun that day.
Oh, no.
Interesting. Anyway, I went there and I was sussing them out a little bit and talking a bit about how to get funding through Screen Australia and that, and they seem to. I don't know. I feel like they've got an agenda. You've got to put Australian content in there if they're even going to look at giving out money and things like that. Do you get that kind of?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've never had any luck with Screen Australia or any of those funding. I've spoken to them many, many times, and they're after a very particular thing they're looking for each year, and they sort of tell you what they're after, but it's one sort of funding body, especially in Australia. Tas has got its own sort of separate one almost, but it's very, very difficult. Very select few people will get in every year, and that's kind of it. So it doesn't bother me too much because I've sort of, I guess, worked out my own sort of way of doing things now, like just the way that, and I've got a lot more control over it. I know, like, I've done some scripts in the past for bigger sort of studios, and I realize how much little control there is when you're writing a script. It's meant to be your own sort of vision, but it's a very calculated and directed way that you get given to write stuff. So, funding bodies in Australia never had luck, and don't necessarily think I may in the future.
They play it safe, don't they? They don't want to take risks. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they're just after, and it's all about what they think's going to sell and what names are in it, and they could have, like, the worst script in the world with famous people in it, and it just gets funded because they think that people will go see it, and people go see it, but at the end of the day, it's just forgotten about and just gets thrown away, unfortunately, which has happened recently as well with a film I saw. So
I think that's why I do a lot of my own self-funding, because I've got control over it and things like that. It's all about having control over what I'm doing. I've got no one can. I don't have to report to anyone. I can do my own thing. I think that's why I tend to do a lot of my stuff's only self-funding. I think I have used crowdfunding a little bit for certain, but I've set reasonable goals. I think a lot of people fail with their campaigns because I think they're asking for ridiculous amounts of money which they can't fill, and I think that you just gotta, you just gotta ground yourself a bit, don't you? And
yeah, I've used the crowdfunding.
I've seen people have a lot of. Oh, sorry.
There you go, man. Sorry.
I've seen people have success with Screen Australia funding they seem to be more generous with developmental money and avenues to get people started. So they'll give a lot more filmmakers who are emerging smaller amounts of money to get them, like, the crew to finish their film or whatever. and then it's up to them on what they do next. So the support can often run out. The next people who get the funding from Screen Australia for, say, a whole film are the ones who are probably more established, looking for more money, and Screen Australia is probably wanting to make a return on those people. But a lot of emerging people have success in getting almost like a donation, and it will only be a once-off, so you've got to make the most of it. See if you can use that to springboard your career.
We had these filmmakers come to the VCA one year, and they had just made a short film that got into the Oscars, so they were nominated for an Oscar. And they said before they got nominated, they couldn't get assistance from anyone. As soon as the nomination got announced, every funding body was contacting them saying, we want to put our logo at the front of your film. We want to be part of it.
Yep.
And they were like, we just had all this, once they were, accepted by the broader filmmaking community, that's when I think it was Film Vic back then or whatever it was called. But that's when they jumped on, and they said it was helpful, but it was, it was just funny that they got it after they were nominated, not anywhere near before that.
Yeah.
So.
Got to prove yourself, don't you? Yeah. And what about Radev, mate? Like, was that self-funded, or did you apply for any funding or anything like that, or?
It's funny, actually. You've just triggered a memory I haven't thought about for a while, where that's the only film I think I've ever been given money, and that was from my local council, just because I asked, because the DOP that I got was just someone I can't remember how I met him, actually, but he was great, Ben. He wanted to really shoot on these super speed primes that cost, I can't remember, $2,000 to hire for the 3 or 4 shooting days. And I was like, I can't afford that. And the rest of the film was costing me nothing because it was a university project where I got the gear given to me. But I just wrote to my council and was like, hey, I'm like a local guy trying to make a film. I can't remember exactly what I was asking for, but they gave me the $2,000 as almost like a donation. And ever since then, I remember once opening the Screen Australia kind of application forms and thinking, this is way too long. I'm not interested in this.
Yeah.
And anytime I open up a form for, even nowadays, I opened one a couple months ago for some sort of program. I think it was more like a mentorship thing. And I was like, this is way too long to, I just have no interest in filling out these forms. My style is more pick up my camera and just go out and make it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Like that, yeah.
Keep the costs the minimum.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah. Very good. All right, so now we've talked about that. So, okay, here's a question for you guys. What is important to you as a director? What do you look at? What do you look for? Like, what do you look at in your project? What's important to you guys as when you direct?
That's a really good question. I might let you go first on that, Matt. I have to think about that one for a minute, I think.
I think for me, because I'm thinking, obviously, I think we all wear multiple hats. So I'm thinking director specific to me requires just like having a good team around you, good people, because if you're just directing, you've obviously got a camera person and maybe a sound person and the actors and stuff. You want all of them to be people that I guess you are all on the same page, you work well together. I guess you want to sort of like them. I think that's probably the thing I'd look for first, and it will be the most important thing for me. Because I've even worked on some promotional projects where I've directed them, and I'll get people in roles that aren't necessarily their expertise just because they've got good vibes to keep the vibes on set. Upbeat and friendly and stuff like that, because to me that's more important in some cases than getting a grumpy. I definitely won't name names, but I've worked in a lot of TV and there's definitely some older grumpy people there, and they are not my vibe.
Get it in every film, yeah.
Well, not if you're choosing. So if you're choosing the people and make that a priority, and there's projects I've worked on where the producer at the top will always hire people based on vibes. So it's like they hire someone who hires someone who hires someone. As it spreads out, you've got this trust that everyone in that chain is going to be good. And they're the projects I'll work on before I even know what it is.
Yep. Very good. I think that's also equally important for me as well. I think having that family, that tight-knit community that you can rely on, work with, I think that is very important and things like that. Just trying to think if there's anything else. I'll let you go, Glenn. I might think of something.
That's like what I'm looking for in a project, I guess. I'm looking for something that I know I can make happen. So I'll have a bunch of different. I've got like at the moment, I've probably got like 3 or 4 scripts from like I think I know which one I want to do next, but I'm not 100%. And I'm like, but the one I've chosen is quite a large project, but I know that I think I can do it. So with like the last film, I thought it's mostly at this like farm sort of house. We're gonna probably go down to Tasmania to shoot it. I think I know how to do that. I think I know the people I want to get involved. So it was just everything just sort of became accessible to me, and not that I wrote any lists. It was just the way I thought in my head, and what interested me the most at the time as well. Like, do I want to make a horror movie? Do I want to make a drama? Do I like what sort of genre I want to get into next? And I tend to make like a little film then a big film, and I sort of go back and forth in that sense. So like the last film I did was like a really small sort of $5,000 movie, and that was just mostly 3 actors, I should say. No dialogue. We just shot. It took us like an hour. The movie goes like an hour and 25 minutes or something. We went down to Phillip Island and shot most of the movie down there. It was just things I knew I could do, and it wouldn't take too long to make. I think the whole movie took us like less than 9 months to make. And with the latest film, I knew it was going to be a bigger film, so I was ready for that. I guess I was sort of looking at. I've done the small thing. I'm okay to do the bigger thing now. 2 big things back to back. I'm not sure. I haven't done that before. I'm not too sure what that's going to be like. But it just whatever. It just sort of happens as it happens. I guess it's almost like a weird sort of organic thing that I don't really have a definite control over. Sometimes it's just if the project's in front of me, and I'm like, I think I could probably make that happen. That just all of a sudden happens. I guess so.
Have you got? Are you very similar? Like I was telling you earlier that I've had to put off my life's work, my end game project, because I'm guessing we all have an end game project. This one particular film that we want to do. Have you? And you want to work on it, but have you ever just said, "I'm not ready yet. I want to put it off and work on some other stuff and to build up to that"? Is that the same? Are you guys going about the same way as what I'm doing, roughly?
Yeah,
and you've
definitely.
been trying to be realistic with yourself and that. Yeah,
I've got this project. I've got this idea for this film because my company's called Dark Epic, and I've got this idea for a movie called The Dark Epic. And I've got this wicked, crazy science fiction idea. And I remember the day I was driving back, I think from maybe a wedding or something, and I had 2 or 3 separate ideas I'd been thinking about for years. And I remember one night I'm driving, and all of a sudden I put those 3 ideas together, and I was like, "Oh man, that's the film." Like that's. And I remember I was so excited. I got my phone out. I'm talking to the phone and recording my voice, saying, "Okay, so after this happens, this happens." And I was so pumped, but I knew it was just a massive, massive project. And I'm like, I need to. This is to do this right. I need to wait a while. I can't do this like next year. This is going to be like maybe 10 years away. But it's sitting there, and I've got maybe half of the film. That's all I've got written down. The other half I don't know. I haven't completed it, so I haven't even bothered to try to finish it. But yeah, it's the end game. That's sort of like that's maybe where I'm heading towards. I'm not too sure, but yeah, that's definitely.
What about you, Matt?
Film, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I have an end game film, but there's definitely some projects that I keep delaying because the skills and technology that I have access to aren't quite there. But they don't feel like the film though. Like when I think of end game, it's like as soon as I've finished this film, my film career is complete. It's not quite like that.
Like, yeah, like,
but
you're like, well, he did it. He got the last film done.
Shut down the website.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some stuff that's like there's some challenges to make it in the short term, say longer term. But even when I look at my ideas, I call it my slate. I don't know if that's a good term, but I got that from somewhere. So it's like my slate of ideas. And some of them you look at and I date them now and you're like, well, this is irrelevant, this story. Maybe I had this idea that was great a few years ago, but it's kind of maybe someone else has already made it, or it's something that's kind of timely and isn't just no one will have an interest in it anymore. Yeah. There's also this nice thing about leaving them to sit there and see how they develop in that sense.
Yeah, it's interesting, because you might come back and you'd be working on something, but you always come back and you might do a little bit here, and then you push off from it for a bit, and you go and do a bit here, and that's what I've been doing too. Like with the medieval film I'm working on, if I think of something, I'll write it down, I'll leave it to and then I'll go and work on what I'm doing because I know I'm not ready yet. But when I come back, a lot of the work that I have been doing is there. I've already done it, so which is kind of cool as well. I'm like building up towards it. and I just love how things change along the, how it adapts. Like you might think you're sold on something, and you think you might, you'll find a better way around it and things like that, which is really good. I think that's the whole creative process, isn't it?
I think it's interesting that we all have that sort of idea that I will like that project. It's too big for me right now. I think I'm okay to leave it for a bit and have the trust in time will sort of mature that idea in yourself, I guess, to be in a better place to make it. That's for sure. But it's
good. It's refreshing to hear that, isn't it?
Yeah,
refreshing to hear that others are doing the same thing. Yeah,
that idea for the film I've got, it actually kind of scares me a bit, like how big it would be and how much work would be involved to make it interesting. I don't even know if it'd even work, but I feel like the ideas never even been done. Well, hope not anyway. A lot of movies come out every year, so someone might release that exact movie next month. I don't know, but I've got a really interesting idea, so I hope that an idea. I love ideas. Ideas are like just such a magical thing, like just the thought in your head of something that you'd never seen it before, and you feel like it's this unique thing. And I remember, I think Kevin Costner had that quote that like a good idea will put a smile on your face. And I love that quote. And I love simple ideas. Ideas that don't need crazy special effects, just simple things, like just really simple ideas. I think are really cool as long as they're unique and interesting. And it's like, I could do that. Yeah,
that's good, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, if the story's worth telling, you'll find a way to make it as well, especially with all the technology these days. There's not a lot stopping you technically. It's probably just more time consuming. So I remember getting really excited about Unreal Engine and Blender. The fact that they're both free, I've seen some really high quality stuff. But obviously, there's a learning curve. There's a lot of time to
even AI is getting interesting now, isn't it? Like, as you told me about Topaz video AI, Matt. You've been using it. Anyway, I ended up buying a copy of it. And I've been using. I think it's bloody fantastic what AI can do, like with some of your older footage to bring it up to the year 2024 and stuff like that. It's pretty impressive what they're doing. It's actually scary.
A lot of them as well. A lot of them really help with the workflow between Topaz upscaling old shitty video, low quality video, and then I've got this program. What's it called? Mac Whisperer, which transcribes everything really accurately, really quickly. The image generation was fun, but I haven't really had a use for it. But it's impressive what it can do.
It's good enough.
Yeah, the new text to video stuff I think is insane. Like all this Sora stuff that's just about to come out is unbelievable. And I don't know what it's going to do. And I love the idea that I can sit back and just like make my own Pixar movie one day and just type a few things in and have a whole feature film in front of me. But I don't know I don't know how it's going to work and how it's going to be taken by the. I don't know. I don't know where it's headed, I guess, is the question. And there's that new NVIDIA chip that's just come out. It can write its own software. I have no idea what that even means, but it can literally just write its own software. It learns and
comes
up with its own programming as you're using it. It's nuts. Like it's a leap.
That sounds really exciting.
And I wonder if the apprehension that we all have about it now is the same that people had about like, cameras when they first came out. All these painters were like, no, you can't take a photo. You've got to paint by hand. And like, no, just push a button. You've got a photo straight away. I think it's just that we're just at that turning point, and it's just the progression of technology, and we're all just like, oh, it's
making our lives easier too, isn't it?
Yeah. It's making heaps of things easier,
saving a lot of time. What do you guys? What do you think you still need to work on to get better as a director?
I'll let you go first on that, Matt, if you like.
I find, like, for me, this is going to be a brain dump. It's like you're constantly improving. And my first thought is like my YouTube algorithm is really good at recommending, new filmmaker tips, whether it's gear related or something to do with a technique. And I find I'm always learning something new. I've never felt like I'm comfortable and I know it all now. And I think that part really excites me as well. So it's like I'm working on everything all the time, really.
Yep.
What was the question again? Sorry, Luke.
So it's what do you think you still need to work on to get better as a director or a filmmaker?
Yeah. I feel like pacing. Pacing's always been a thing that's very interesting to me. I kind of get obsessed with how films are structured, and like I used to watch movies and write down like how long scenes went for and like what percentage of the movie had this element and where the action scenes pop up and just how it's all paced. That really fascinates me, and just taking out one shot here and replacing it or trimming a scene can change the whole film sometimes. Like that to me is crazy. So I find pacing. I always find my movies get really interesting like in the last third, but the first 2/3 might take a while to warm up. So I'm trying to learn how to sort of figure out my pacing and try
I kind of experiment with that
with
the edit. Yeah. Like I work on the edit and I go like I'm learning a bit about pacing at the moment with the Snap Factory trailer that we're putting together. I'm trying to get the right mixture of slowing down and then also hitting them hard and things like that. So I'm working on that at the moment as well, which is really interesting. Yeah.
Pacing.
You reminded me, Glenn, that one thing I don't know if you do. You might do this with your pacing, but sometimes I'll drag a film into Premiere. I think you can do this in Resolve, and I'll get it to automatically edit by scenes, so it cuts it up.
Right.
And then I'll start kind of watching through and just seeing where, especially on a film where I'm like, wow, I don't understand. I was so absorbed in it, I wasn't thinking about how they told this story, but maybe it was jumping around in time and it was really complicated. It didn't feel complicated to me. I'll start breaking it down in Premiere. Maybe I'll put a few text notes above it and really try and dissect how they made it.
Notes are important, aren't they? I do notes with my edit. I've got fucking markers all through. Like, if you've seen some of my edits, it's just marker with notes.
But I'm talking about looking at someone else's film.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to. I get that's like editing's always a weird thing. Like you've almost got to. I always feel like editing, it can't be done with numbers. It's got to be done almost with like you got to feel it sometimes. Like as you're watching a scene, like just to know where the cuts to go. Because some people can say, oh, I like have a 5-second shot here, and your establishing shot has to be 6 seconds, and this close up no longer than 20 seconds, all that sort of stuff. But I love experimenting with, especially the last 2 films I've done. We've got some really really long takes in the film. Like some of the whole scene is just one shot. But how interesting can you make that shot so people have always got something to look at? And where do you put the cuts in, and where do you feel the cuts go? And like I think when I did Dreams of Paper and Ink, we had a scene where this guy's walking down a beach with he's looking for something. You're not sure what he's looking for yet. He's got a metal detector on the beach, and the scene goes for like 1 minute and 20 seconds, and it's just one shot of him on this beach, sunset, and he's just walking. It's one shot, and I love it. And then I did a re-edit of the film at one point. I'm like, this scene's way too long. I can't let a scene go. They can't get one shot for 1 minute and a bit. That's just ridiculous. So I trimmed it down to like, 25 seconds. And all of a sudden the movie was just terrible. And I'm like, that's not the movie. But the movie has to be this long, boring shot of this guy just walking down the beach. And that's what sort of the whole movie became about, just these really long takes of just things happening. It's just all about the feeling of it, not the maths about it, I guess, if that makes sense.
I found that movie to be very it was so smart. Like it's never been. I don't think I've seen a film like that where you're left up to your brain to fill in the gaps and it made perfect sense. Like I think it's underrated, that movie. I think it's I really enjoyed that film, mate. I think
most people that see it really like it. It just never really got the legs under it to get out into the world. But I've got plans for it. I've got future plans to get that movie out and about. But it yeah, whatever. I think, and I'm the same. Like if I'm on Netflix one night going through movies and there's a drama, like a love story with no dialogue, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to go watch like the latest, Stranger Things or murder mystery, like true crime murder doco about some crazy thing that happened in the States. So it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to get people in, but once they're in, people really seem to like it. So yeah.
Yeah, I find a lot, like I do when I'm in editing and stuff like that, I just tend to know what works. I experiment. And I think also having these test screenings too help. Because I remember when I played The Count, when we had the Bendigo premiere, and that was sellout. And then I'd watch people, and then I'd sit there and I just, how you sit there analysing your film after it, just trying, and stuff like that. And so I went back and I felt the party scene footage was too long, so I trimmed that to the sweet spot. I found the sweet spot, and then it just felt like it just flew. It was just going really nice and smooth and things like that. And that was I only picked that up because of having that original screening, and I thought, oh fuck, this is dragging on in that. And then I went back and I just fine tuned from what I've gathered and stuff like that, and people's experiences and things like that. So.
Yeah, definitely.
There's also something when you've been watching it for so long. I'm sorry.
You go, Matt.
When you're so familiar with it, you've watched it so long, you're like,
Yeah.
you're thinking about different stuff to the general audience. You're maybe thinking about a subtext of story in that party scene that no one else is thinking about. So it's interesting to you. That's why I find it's really valuable. I'm never precious with my films before release. I'll share them with as many diverse people that aren't even in the film industry, and really encourage them to be as honest and as brutal as they can be, because I want to know what doesn't work now before it's released.
I
I
was
find that
even
really
going
valuable.
to way back. I was even thinking of I had a sheet that I wrote up, and I was going to leave it like when we had the screenings. And I was going to leave it on the seat, and people could just what they say, what they liked about, what they didn't, and write that so I can get some feedback and things like that to maybe work on and fine tune and things like that. It was something that I kind of come up with a while back too, but yeah, trying all these different things.
It's important.
Yeah, that's right. So where do you usually start when you want to make a new film? What do you how do you kind of where do you start? Like, give us an idea where you start when you want to start working on a new film and things like that. What do you do?
It's always just the idea, I guess. Thousands of ideas going, like you said before, Matt. Like you're talking to people and you're picking up different ideas, and you have a dream. I write all my dreams down now because that always gives me really interesting ideas. It's always just an idea, and then it just slowly, eventually, one day, all of a sudden, you're writing that idea. I don't know where that happens, but all of a sudden, you're just typing it out. You're like, okay, this kind of works. Oh, that doesn't work. I'll delete that. I'll start again. Just an idea, and
Do you use
and then it turns into
dictaphones,
a
Glenn?
script. What was that? Sorry.
Do you use dictaphones at all? When you're driving in your car and you're thinking, doing a lot of your own thinking.
I just sort of just remember ideas in my head. I'll just have an idea and just mostly remember a lot of them. But I'll just have an idea and it just turns into a script. And then all of a sudden, sometimes...
A lot of my ideas come from me driving. I do a lot of driving, driving back and forth. And a lot of my ideas come from just like looking at scenery and I can also do my own location scouting at the same time. I'm always going past. I drive through New Bridge, for example, which is in between Bendigo. It's not far from Bendigo through to Dimboola. So I get through New Bridge, and if you've seen New Bridge, if you Google map it, have a look. There's a beautiful at the front there and across from the pub. There's a beautiful corner store, like a general store, and it looks like something you'd see in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. When they pull up at the gas station there and stuff. And I'm driving past it, and I'm taking photos. I'm looking, I'm going, that's got to be in a fucking movie. And I'm like, I'll be looking at it, different feel. I'm always brainstorming. I have these little dictaphones, as Matt knows, these little dictaphones that I talk into. I go give the date and I give my idea, and everything is documented and time stamped and everything. I do a lot of videos on, you see my vlogs and things like that, because it's my way of trying to get it out there. I want people knowing what I'm going through at that time with that creative process. I want people to know that, Just want to educate people on that one and that.
That's cool.
It's so interesting that you've recorded so much audio.
I've documented my whole filmmaking journey from start to finish. It's a wonder I didn't take tell you guys how many shits I had in a day. You know what I mean?
You probably do at some point.
No, I think I'll keep that to myself. But yeah, but everyone has a process, don't they? A creative process that they do, how they go about it and stuff like that. I think. But like you said, Glenn, it always starts with that idea. And then you work around, you evolve, and you grow.
It's almost like there's hundreds of ideas always bubbling away, and then one will just sort of pop up, and I'm like, oh, I think that's kind of good. I'll grab a bit of that one. I'll grab a bit of that one. Oh, that nah, that doesn't work. All right, this. Oh, actually, okay, there's something. And it's
funny. We have similar. Like we start off with the idea, and then you centralize that idea, and you work around to build this.
Yeah, eventually, one idea just gets to a point where that's strong enough to sort of throw other ideas onto, and it'll hold her up enough usually.
Yeah,
and that's when it all sort of happens.
I'll give you an example. Like with Snap Factory, some of the key ideas I had to try and make that movie was I wanted to do a detective story. So that was one. That was the detective story. I wanted to have a scene with that bloke tied to a chair getting the shit bashed through him and all that. I wanted to film that. That was the central idea. What else did I do? What was another idea? I wanted to do a scene with a psychiatrist talking to a patient on a couch. That was another scene I wanted to do. I worked the story around that. What else was another one? So it was all these ideas that I had that I put it all in the same universe and created this story around it, crafted the story around it. And it must be a very similar approach.
I think so. I assume most people would have a similar. Yeah, I don't have any sort of particular way of doing things that are quite unique. I don't think to most people it's just a normal think a lot and then end up writing something at some point, and 1 in 2 or 1 in 3 scripts you might actually end up making. So yeah.
I just love how it evolves. I love how how thing you've sold on something, but then it seems to evolve. Like with The Count, for example, look, going back to the bare roots of that film, like it was about a serial killer that was torturing 2 people in like a warehousing. So that kind of come into the Snap Factory. I never used that, but then so it was supposed to be like in a little like with chains hanging and shit. So that kind of went off to the Snap Factory area. But I took that idea and then I said, okay, what am I going to do? And then we need a place where we could yell and scream and cops won't be called. So I'm looking at the technical side of that, and I'm thinking, where am I going to fucking film this movie? Like, I want to. Can I film it? If I film it in a suburban street, I'm going to have problems. There's going to be problems. So then the farm only come into it as I was there, and I went over there to visit my father one day, and I'm in the house and I'm like looking at it and I'm going, this is perfect. Let's just film it in a bloody a farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere. It's all run down. It's got that look about it, and it see how it evolves. The film just kind of evolves and grows. Like you start off with this, and then it just, I don't know, it just starts creating itself.
Yeah, you'll see something about it and you'll be like, oh, I could, if we shot, like you said, if we shoot it at this particular location, that would work. Okay, there's a tick that sort of pushes it forward a little bit more. And it's like, it's only so many actors. That's easy to do. I know some actors. And eventually the project just has enough sort of positive elements to it. You're like, this is actually probably going to happen at some point. And then it does.
Yeah, and if it's ticking those boxes at the right time when you're ready to do it, because that's the thing for me, is like looking at those ideas. Do I feel like doing a short one or a big one? How ambitious am I right now? Do I want to just knock out something quick to have something done? Do I want to experiment with something? That's what usually helps push them to the top.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
Now, do you guys do your own editing, or would you rather pass the editing on to someone?
You go, Matt.
So for me, I just always do the editing, mainly because it's something I enjoy doing. Like going into film school, everyone wanted to be a director like Steven Spielberg, but I was really excited about editing, so it's something I really like. It's kind of like the third time you can write the story. And also I find it's actually really time consuming, so it can be hard to burden someone with that sort of time commitment. And also, I find the benefit of having been on the set is really helpful when it comes to editing, because you've probably already half edited it in your mind while you were there. So it's definitely something I enjoy doing and will often do. But I'll also sometimes get friends to have a go at certain scenes, or maybe I'll give them some rushes and see what they come up with to get a new idea. So I guess I'm not closed to it, but definitely enjoy the editing process.
Yeah. Oh, very good.
I'm the same. I love editing. I can't get enough. I edit like every day. I've edited all my films. I don't think I could ever give my films to someone else to edit. I think I'm too precious about it all. It's that control. It's a control thing, I guess. I love. I can't get enough. I edit every day.
Yeah, I had the same experience too. Like I was doing all my own editing, and then this one particular film, I passed the film off for them to edit, and I just I could tell them what I wanted and all that, which. There's only a certain amount of control I can give there, but it's just there's something about me cutting my own stuff together. It's personal. I know the film intimately, and I know the story very well. And I think, like you said, Glenn, it's more of it's like a control thing there.
Yeah. I think directing.
I don't know. I think I had a bit of a bad experience. Yeah, and I just prefer to do my own stuff, even though it's very time consuming. I'd love to pass it off to someone who is like, very competent in what they do. I just think I haven't found that person yet.
Yeah,
I've had some really good experiences though when filming stuff for TV shows, where it's kind of liberating at the end of the day to just hand off the rushes and see what they do with it. And sometimes you're thinking, God, I'd love to see how they can piece this mess together. and then you get some really skilled people, and they can actually make something incredible out of it. I like that side of it, but if it's my own stuff, I think it's hard to pass that off.
I think you are right. I think when I remember when he was cutting it together, like there was a sense of like excitement, like it's like, oh, let's see what he's come up with. But I don't know, it's something. It's like I said, it's more of a personal thing. It's your project, it's your baby. It needs to be. You need to be the one that nurtures it, kind of thing. I think that's kind of.
Yep.
I think we both have that. We've all got that same type of outlook.
I think if you've written it and directed it, then you have to edit it. Well, you don't have to, but that's how I feel.
I think you do. Yeah,
yeah. Be there at all 3 stages.
Like I'd love to just yeah. Now this next topic, guys, is probably a very important one. Now I think we need to talk about it more. I think it's very important. It's something that I know all too well about now because it's happened to me. I want to get your view, your take on it. I think it's something that's it's exceptional. We need to talk about it, and that is where's the question? Oh, sorry. Mental health and burnout, and how do you guys handle it? Yeah, that's the question. Yeah.
Well, I find I'm usually pretty good with film projects. Like I've dealt with a lot of like anxiety, I think, in the last probably maybe 10 years. I've always sort of had it, I guess. And then you have a couple of panic attacks and it sort of rocks your world around and you're trying to figure out what's going on with your mind and stuff. I think it's really common, especially for creative people. Like apparently it's a big thing for creative people that you have sort of, I'm lucky I haven't had much of the whole depression thing, I think, but anxiety, definitely. I'll be sort of, I've been at the shops before or wherever, driving a car and I'm like, I need to get out of this situation for no particular reason. It's very common. I think it's very common. I know many people that are going through, a lot of directors as well, going through that sort of stuff. So I just try to look after myself as much as I can. And like you said, like don't burn yourself out too much because tiredness can bring on all those sort of things. I know I was over in the States recently with my dad. We went over to see like Elvis's house at Graceland, or went to Memphis and saw Elvis's place, which is crazy. But we got barely any sleep. And the whole time I was over there, I just thought, I think I'm going to die. I think I'm just going to die right now. Like, I don't know. I felt so weird and out of it. Like my brain was just like, you need to sleep. And I just that adrenaline and that anxiety sort of built up. But I found a really good thing that's actually helped me is chamomile tea. I've never been on any sort of medication. I've been offered medication. I've never gone onto it, but I found chamomile tea. It's just soothing. And I've done studies on the studies of people that have had it. And if you have that for a couple of months, like, once or twice a day, all of a sudden you just don't worry as much, which is kind of nice. So,
yes. I've heard tea's supposed to be pretty good for you. Yeah.
Caffeine. That's good to know, the chamomile tea. Even if the chamomile tea is a placebo, as long as it's working.
Yeah, no, it definitely works for me. So I just, caffeine is my
probably better than drinking coffee in that. Yeah.
I think caffeine just drives me crazy because my mind's already going nuts anyway, always thinking about things. And to add caffeine on top of that, just to speed things up, it's just not good for me. So, but yeah, I'm like I said, if I'm on a project, I'm sort of focused on that. Like I was actually a bit worried when I did Ancestry Road because we were going to be down in Tassie for 3 weeks filming, and I was producing and directing and doing wearing a lot of different hats. And I was like, I don't want to have like a freak out and just sort of get overwhelmed and have to sort of sit in a corner for a bit and just let the shakes stop and all that sort of stuff. But I was actually fine because I was just concentrating on not me for once. I wasn't like just sitting at home worrying about things. I'm like, I've got to go. I've got to make this film. I couldn't have time to be worried about it, which was kind of nice. So, but
with the expectations that you set, that you put on, like this film's going to be bigger than your last. Like you putting, you've done that film, you're going further and stuff like that. Do you ever get worried that that you're because of the scope of the film, that do you get like anxiety? Do you get worried at all? Like get nervous that
No, I'll get worried about really irrelevant things. But it usually, I know after my mom passed away, I went through probably about 6 months and I was really anxious just about little things. I'd be picking up the kids from kinder and I'd be like, picking them up and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to pass out. I need to get out of here. Like I felt so weird. And that's just the extra adrenaline that's, pumping and all that sort of stuff. So that sort of stuff worried me. But going off and, being in charge of almost 100 people for 3 weeks, I was kind of like, I don't know why. but I think it's almost like your calling, I guess. That's how I feel. It's like my thing I'm meant to be doing. It's when I'm not doing it, I probably get more anxious about things because my mind's like, you need to start making a film. You need to get out there. And what are you doing? Don't, get off your PlayStation and make a movie or something. So, but no, not really. No, the scope didn't really, because it was my own thing. If it had been someone else's project, I probably would have struggled a bit, I think, because it's not like my, I feel like my calling's a director. And if it was someone else was like, oh, we want you to come and, produce this film that you didn't write or anything, I'd be like, I don't know if I could, I'd probably get a bit stressed and bored with the whole process. But because it was my own thing, I just was happy to nurture it like a child, I guess, and just jump into it sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice to hear it was good for you, Glenn.
Yeah. I was really quite worried about it, to be honest. I was kind of like, because I know what it's like to be overwhelmed, and it's a really awful feeling because it's almost like it's a part of your brain that gets turned on without you wanting it to be turned on. That's how I feel. It's like a car alarm that's going off on the street when there's no emergency.
At least you've acknowledged it, Glenn. You've seen the signs. You know when something's not right, and then you back off. When I got sick, I didn't know there was any signs. I didn't pay attention. I was so consumed with my work that I didn't have the time to acknowledge it, because I know for a fact I abused the shit out of myself. And there was warning signs. I know that now. I can see it. I can go back and I can look and see it. Like, one of the signs for me for burnout, and I'll let everyone know about this because I want people to know about this, is your concentration will start going from one thing to another. You'll be doing a bit, you'll be jumping here, doing a bit, jumping here, doing a bit, jumping here, doing it, and you feel like you're doing a lot, but in reality you're not. You're doing a bit, and that's a sign of burnout. You know what I mean? Your body is slowing down, shutting down, and then you get to the point where one day you will wake up and you'll get your pen and paper and you'll sit there with the point on the paper, and you just can't write. You can't do it. It shuts you down completely. That's what happened with me. It just stopped. Everything stopped. Like, and then
was
6
yours
years
sort of
later,
more like, was yours like it was just a burnout, or was yours more like an anxiety type of thing where like you would try to do something and your whole body would be like, just don't do that. Like it would almost like stop you from doing things.
Well, that's part of it, but I think it just completely shut me down. I don't know. It just stopped me. There's warning signs, and it completely just stopped me. Like, I was trying to push through, and nothing. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I think I was just so exhausted. I just could. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to describe.
Exhaustion's the worst. That's it. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and because I tend to, as you guys know, I'm a bit of a jack of all. I wear many hats. I do everything on my films, everything, and I recruit certain people that I know I can't do that particular job. I'll hire someone for that job, but I tend to do a lot of my own work so that I have that real intimate connection. I know that film better than absolutely anyone. I know I put a lot of extra pressure on myself. I don't know why I do it. It's just, I don't know. I just do it. That's my process. I
think it's because you started out, and same with us. Like, it's like as an independent filmmaker, like you were making films all by yourself, and to get a film made, you had to do everything yourself. And as you get older, opportunities arise where you don't need to do everything yourself, but you still feel like you have to do it yourself because you're not going to get the right results. And I've struggled with that too. Like, I'm like, I don't have to do everything myself. I can pass things off. It's okay. Like, it took me a while.
I think that's what I need to learn. I need to learn that, Glenn. I need to learn. I know I have been learning that. I have been learning to pass the buck off to other people and let them take some of the slack, the heat off me and that. And I've been doing that with a few different jobs. I've been actually getting people to do, and I feel freer. I feel so. I think it's a trust thing. Yeah. I think I think it's a.
I'm the same. Yeah.
I don't know. I just have a hard time trying to trust people. I just feel like they don't put their all into their work. I feel like they're just, I don't know. Do you get that?
Yeah, I get that. Because I said, when I started out, there was so many situations where I was like, I need you to, I need some help to do a part of the film, and I'd, send it off to them, and it just wouldn't happen, or they'd disappear, or the work was awful. And I was like, man, I'm going to have to learn how to do sound mixing myself now. I'm going to have to learn how to do effects myself. I'm going to have to learn like all these things. And once you get burnt a few times like that, it's really hard to sort of go, all right. But as it gets, like, I know when I did The Comet Kids, that was the first movie where I had a cinematographer, and And at first I was like, oh man, do I really want someone else to shoot the whole movie? But when I let go of that, it was actually wonderful. I was just like, it was like, it was like I was carrying weights, and I just dropped a few weights. I was like, oh man, I can concentrate on this properly now. But then the next film I did all the cinematography myself. So I jumped around. Like, you can still do projects completely yourself, and it's okay to pass things off for other things, I think. But I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, the trust thing. I think it's because you get burnt early on, and it's like, oh man, do I really? Are you sure you can do this? Are you sure? But as you get older, and you get more, there's more money involved, and you get professionals. It makes things a lot easier for sure.
Makes it easier, yeah. What about you, Matt? Have you had any experiences in that? Or?
So burnout's the one, like, that's sort of the reason you and I reconnected in 2022, Luke, was because it was definitely something I could relate to. And for me, it always comes from taking on too much work and then just working crazy hours or whatever, and then hitting a point where it feels like your body's shutting down. And it's something that even when I think my first and worst one was in 2017. And I feel like every 2 years, I probably have sort of had another burnout where I'm trying really hard not to get burnt out, and it happens again. And then I've got to rethink and be like, okay, what can I do differently next time? Because it's really hard when it feels like you sort of hit rock bottom physically, and you don't want to feel like that.
I think too, it's as you guys are all made aware, we're very creative people. Our creative juices are constantly flowing all the time. We're always thinking of different things and all that type of stuff. And I think what happens is we feel like we've got to I've got to do this before I die. I've got to cram all this in, and you start doing all these you're working on this, and before you know it, you're working on that, and you're doing this and that. And I think what's important, you need to document that stuff, but just focus on the job at hand and then move on to it. What I found I kept doing is, because everything, I was in the middle of Snap Factory, I had like half a dozen jobs, projects going at once, which is crazy. Like, that's not normal. And I'm working on my next film, even though I haven't finished Snap Factory yet, if that makes sense. Like, I'm working on my next film, and I'm doing this, and I'm like, I just took on way too much, and then bang, it just happened. And I know that now, but I've got to a point where the last 6 years I've documented, I've written down what I need to do. I've got a plan now, and I'm executing that plan. And I think that's how I've worked it. It's just been a long bloody journey of talking to people and finding ways of dealing with it. And I wanted to push through, and I felt like I disappointed a lot of people, but I just had to stop and get myself together and then go again. And I have been chipping away. And a lot of these projects I have been working on over that time are almost, they're almost completed. And so I'm just working my way down the list now, finishing that job, moving on to the next one, knock that out, and I'm just going to do that from now on. So, and it's taken me a long time to learn that. So, and I want to try and get that out to people, and I want people to know that. So, I don't, because it's easy to fall into that. It's quite easy to fall into that, that realm. So, I
remember I made like a little rule for myself years ago where it was like, if I can do one thing a day that's going to get me to where I want to be eventually, that's a good day. And that could just be send one email, make one phone call, or just, download a reference image and put in, like, just one thing. That's all it needs to be. And it can be tiny.
That's it.
And then the rest of the day I can do whatever I want. I can just, go and hang out with the kids or work or whatever I need to do at the time. But just one little thing. And that just made things a lot easier. And obviously I'm probably doing 1,000 things a day at the moment, but some days are a lot slower than others. But I know what you're saying. Like, you want to get this done before you die. It does feel like I've got these stories in my head. There's so much work to be done.
Run out of time.
And it can just pile up on you. And you're like, oh man, I don't have time to do this. I don't have enough, time or hands to make it happen.
And you are so right. Like, just right. I've got a thing where I've been doing one thing a day or a couple of things a day, and I feel really good in myself because I've accomplished something.
Yeah.
And I think filmmakers need that little bit. They need that validation to keep them going. If you don't have that, like I for 6 years, so you imagine a workaholic every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, constantly for 10, 12 plus years or more, working, and then everything just coming to a stop. and everything you've been building, all the achievements, all the accomplishments you've done, just everything stops, and just going through that sense of negativity and the world sucks and fuck this and fuck that, and then trying to pull yourself out of that to get back to where you were, and then all it's taken is just a couple of accomplishments. That's all it needs, and what it did is fired me up again. And for example, doing this podcast today, I don't have to really do much with it. I'm doing this job, I knock it out, and I feel good about myself, and I've accomplished something. You guys have accomplished something, and it's great, and that's all it's taking. I'm just doing that now, and I've had to rebuild myself.
The weirdest thing about making films like what we do is that the rewards don't come for so long. So like if you're going to start making a film and you have an idea and you're working on a script for like a year or so, and you go out to production for 12 months and then you're editing for 6 months, before anyone sees it, before that reward happens, which is essentially what I think the reward is of having an audience watch your stuff, it's a really long time. And you've got to believe in something blindly. You've got to be like, I know this is good. I hope this is good. I want this to be good. And it can take a lot of like faith, essentially. Not that I'm a religious person at all, but it's just it takes a faith of you believing in something that's not necessarily that easy to see or feel. And it can be rough. There's
and trying to maintain
like, I should have stopped. This is awful. Project. I should stop this. I hate this. Why do I even have to keep going?
Yeah. If I stop now, no one will know I even did it.
Yeah. And it's hard to push. And I find it's always right near the end of the post-production, right in that last like couple of months or weeks, is the hardest push, like just to get it, because you're so over it by then. You're like, man, I've watched this so many times. I don't want to see this again, but I have to keep looking at it. I have to keep pushing it. And it's rough. It can get really rough. And that's
trying to keep that same level of passion and intensity, that same drive that you had from conception. You got to see it right through to the end and maintain that. And I think that's where a lot of filmmakers, you are right. They tend to, it's that last, trying to get over that hill, that last portion.
The steepest right near the
finish line.
I've almost given up many times.
So right.
I'm like, I'm just going to keep pushing. Just one thing a day, and it will get there. It might take a year. It might take a few weeks. I don't know, but it'll get there. So
that's it. Yeah,
that's a good way to look at it. One thing a day keeps it moving forward.
Well, that's what when I had to go and speak to a psychologist, that's what she told me to do. She said, just make a bunch of little goals that you want to achieve for the day, write them down, and just focus on that. Knock that out. And if you want to do more, you can, but if you don't want to, just don't push yourself. Don't just stop, if you don't feel like you can do it. And it's all these little things that have helped me. It's been a long 6 years plus to try, and I've learned so much in that time. So that's why I think it's important. I never used to really, I was so focused, I didn't really care about mental health or any of that type of shit, because I don't have time for it. I'm not worrying about it. It's irrelevant. But then when something like that happens, and I think it's so important, especially with creatives, I think we really need to talk about it. And I think it's relevant because it can happen to anyone at any time. And I don't want people to go through what I went through, because it's not fun. So if I can do my part and talk and communicate it across, and it might help someone. So,
yeah, it normalizes it, because you don't realize you're even dealing with it until it happens.
It does, yeah.
And then for me, once it happens, that's how do you stop it happening again?
It creeps up on you and then it just goes pop. Yeah, and that's what happens. Yeah. Not expecting it. Anyway, guys, I'll kick it off the next one. So working with people on set, the good and the bad, have you had any bad experiences? Or good experiences?
Yes, always. All sorts of things go wrong, I guess, on films. And it's interesting to actually listen to stories about other people, right at the top end of filmmaking, all the crazy stuff that goes on there too. It's not like a unique experience to have things go wrong on films. I've had heaps of stuff go wrong. Most of the people I work with...
Yeah, things don't often go to plan.
All sorts of stuff. You have, things that get broken and insurance claims and police turning up, and all sorts of stuff goes wrong when you're making a film. I've been really lucky. I try to plan ahead as much as I can, make sure everything's safe, make sure everyone's, okay, doing everything by the books as much as you can. That usually helps. But with people on set, it's good to, I guess, do a lot of research on the people that you're working with before you hire them, I guess, to sort of know what they're really like, because you don't want to sort of get people... I remember when I used to do auditions, I used to just have open casting calls and anyone could turn up. And after a few days of that, I was like, this is a really bad idea because we're getting people that are not suited for this at all. Like we're just getting the wrong sort of people
chaos,
turning up and some really crazy people rocking up and all sorts of stuff going on. So it was like I started doing research. I was very selective on the actors I wanted. Okay, I want to meet with you. And now it's all online like this. Like it's crazy. It's so much easier.
Yep.
It's all normalized now just to, do a web chat instead of meeting in person, which is good and bad. But it's just easier. It's almost like we've got like free travel now. Like it's just, imagine trying to do this like, 15 years ago, would have had to, all right, I'll jump on a train to get up to where you are, Luke, and we'll get together and we'll, it's made life quicker, I guess. That's for sure. But I've been mostly lucky with people. I'm mostly easygoing, I think, as in my own self. I don't get too sort of, if I ever get angry about stuff, I sort of more internalize it and it becomes more of a worry sort of thing. It never turns into like an angry sort of thing, I guess. I've never really like cracked it on set before, ever, I don't think.
Always you seem like the type of guy I'd love to work with. I'd love to work with you, Glenn, one day. I reckon it'd be awesome.
I just try to make as many jokes as I can. I just think just life, what I've learned recently, I think life is so crazy. Like there's stuff in life that just you're not prepared for. And now I just laugh at it. I'm like, I can't believe that's like, what is this? Like, what is this life that's happening? This is just nuts. Like who came up with these rules? So I just try not to take it too seriously. And just have fun. But sometimes
it's a good mindset.
Sometimes you need to kick into work mode and get things done, but it's always something funny is happening usually when we're shooting things, so which is good. But I'm pretty good working with usually sort of know who I'm going to be working with before it starts, so there's no huge surprises I've had really.
That's good. What about you, Matt?
Obviously I think I've said earlier it's important to have good vibes with the crew. But it did trigger a memory when you first asked the question, where I remember on one of the uni shoots, the one where I was assigned to film it, I just remember the director would say cut. Every time he'd say cut, there was heaps of people just on the set for some reason. I think a bunch of people were just hanging out, and they'd all walk onto the set and just start chatting, and and it would take ages to clear the set.
Oh, really?
And I just remember having this, and then we filmed so late into the night, and I just remember thinking, I never want to do that again. And I feel like it's stuck with me, and I haven't thought about it as it specifically came from that moment. But it's like, I really don't like when shoots go overtime, and it was sort of avoidable. And especially if it's like you're doing overtime, maybe late into the night, and it was because of they didn't have a first AD to keep it on schedule or something. I find that really is probably the thing I don't like personally.
Have you guys ever had any, like, I'm sure it happens in every set, most sets anyway that I've worked on. Have you ever had, like, there's always, like, the black sheep of the family. There's always got to be one person that's got to, everyone else is going really good and gelling, and it's like a tight-knit family community type thing. You ever had that one person that's got to just make issues or just kind of, wreck the experience kind of thing? Have you ever had anything like that, like with certain
definitely
members?
Bigger projects especially where you have no control on anyone that's there's always a black sheep, and it's often from the same sort of department. I won't name them, but there certain departments can attract the same type of people, and they're not fun to work with.
I've been on sets where we've had like a black sheep, I guess you'd call them, and then someone else will turn up and they're like a blacker sheep, and then it makes the original black sheep not seem that bad. And you're like, oh, this guy's even worse. Check out this guy, or whatever the situation is. But it's usually pretty cruisy. I've been really lucky on most of my films, to be honest, that everyone's been pretty sort of had mostly fun sort of experience, because I try to make sure I know who I'm getting in contact with. To begin with, I was going to say something. I've gone totally blank. I was going to say something before, but sorry. You guys keep going.
When you said the second black sheep came in, you reminded me that some of these projects I've been on, when you have the wrap party and everyone's having some drinks and we're finally able to just chat, sometimes the black sheep ends up being a nicer person than I thought they were once you sort of get to know them as well.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine. He said that directing, also about like directing.
I don't know. You go, Glenn.
He said like directing is not just about directing films; it's directing personalities as well. And I thought that was really interesting. because he had issues with people on his project, and he's like, it's you got to, everyone's got to be happy. And that's a really difficult thing to keep going sometimes on films because, and what I found interesting is if you do different roles on a film, you have better appreciation for what people are doing. Like once I had to be interviewed for something, and I was in front of the camera, and I remember the director and the sound person were just looking at their equipment. They weren't looking at me at all, and I found that really quite off-putting. I was like, oh, they're just looking away. They're looking at their monitors and their settings on their sound thing. So I always made an effort to make sure the actors in the corner of their eye can see me sort of looking at them and pay attention to them as a person, as an actor, not just like how the frame's looking. Little things like that I think once you do different roles, like once you do sound on a film, you sort of notice, how much time you actually need. And it's like, quick, get the sound ready. It's like, no, take your time, do what you need to do sort of thing. That can be helpful sometimes.
That's a good point.
From those perspectives, what other people are going through until you actually do it. And you're like, okay, it's actually quite difficult to do this. So, yeah.
That's a good point because, especially with the sound, I found when I've done sound before on projects, it's the thing, no one's thinking about sound. They just kind of assume that the sound person's going in there. They're not asking if the sound person to check their frame of where they're going. It's just kind of this forgotten role. And I remember experiencing that, and then now ever since I always make sure the sound person's comfortable because I've gone through it. That's a good point, Glenn. Like once you've experienced the roles, you also know,
and you can only get it once you've done it. That's the thing. Like you can't really imagine.
That's right. Once you've learned that, you're right. Yeah, I think that's why I should know. It's funny you talk about sound. We had, and now that I look at it, maybe maybe the reason why they're a bit cranky is because they're holding that beam pole for so long and things like that. But I had a problem with a little bit of the makeup on the count, a little bit, and I also had a problem with the soundies on Snap Factory. One ended up leaving. He cracked the shits. We went a little bit overtime and during the night and stuff like that, and it wasn't intentional. It's film. It happens sometimes. Anyway, he didn't rock up the next day, and they worked in a 2-man team, and they charged me $6,000 for 6 days' work. And I needed a soundie, so I think they took advantage of it there. Anyway, I got them on board, and we had these imitation firearms that we had at all. Those imitation firearms that you get from like Warwick's in Melbourne and that. The firearm bins and stuffed in them, and I had to sign legal forms and all that to have them. And they were sitting there going, "Oh, you got permits for that?" And they're all like, those type of people. And I had a few issues with the soundies. So I think on the 4th day, I think I went off a little bit. I cracked the shits and went off a little bit, which I probably shouldn't have. But I was just under a lot of pressure with everything, finance, money, everything, just the whole show and that. So, but most of the people I've worked with on set have been pretty good. They've been pretty reasonable, and I've had good experiences and stuff. I just think when something like that happens, when that happened, I wanted to get the filming over and done with. I lost that spark, that joy I mean, it felt like they just wrecked that experience for me and stuff like that. And I think I think that was another contributing factor why I got crook as well too. A lot of pressure on the set.
Yeah, I found sometimes I've got into situations where I don't realize how deep I am in the situation until like I'm halfway through it. I'm like, oh man, I've got like all this crew, all this equipment. Oh no, what am I doing? I hadn't sort of planned. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into when I first started out sometimes. And that's a learning thing, unfortunately, to sort of feel like, oh man, I need to, we've got to feed everyone. Oh no, no one wants to eat frozen pizzas like the whole time. People want like actual food and stuff. So it's little things you learn, you learn across the way.
It's funny you mention that. Like it's the little things in it that you don't think are that important, but you look at it and you go, oh yeah, like food boosts morale. So like I never really worried about catering too much on stuff. We just kind of dealt with it. But I've realised now that what I've learned, I've realised, I will have a caterer for the next set that I work on because I think it make people happy, and then you get more productivity. And it's these little things, even like continuity and stuff like that,
There's so many, there's a lot of different moving pieces to a film, and it can be difficult to keep track of them all. And you learn as you go, like you learn what's important and what you need to look after.
Sorry to cut you off, guys. Like we are getting closer to 2 hours. I have a few more questions. You don't mind going a little bit over time?
Got to actually.
I can't go too long over, but
no, it won't be too long. But I've got like about maybe 3 questions left or something like that. Is that all right?
I've got to pretty much get going in about 2 minutes because my daughter's kindergarten thing is happening at 1 o'clock. Sorry, I've got to be down there for a picnic.
Sorry,
lunch.
I might run a bit over time. That's all.
That's all right. That's fine.
I just got here tips, advice for first-time filmmakers starting off. Any tips or ideas where to start, film networking nights, etc. And then I've got I wanted to talk a little bit about distribution, but we can leave that. And then film festivals. Do you like film? Yay or nay? Do you like film festivals and that? And then I was just going to ask whether or not what you guys are up to next.
I can try to answer all those questions if you like, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine, Glenn. Yeah. Sorry, I know we've expanded. I just didn't realise. Yeah,
no, that's right. First-time filmmakers, I think this gets said 1,000 times. Just go out and do it. I know everyone's heard that. It's like just go out and do it. Just go do it. It doesn't matter what camera you have. The camera you got is the best camera that you'll be using, and just learn to go with that because that's the best way to do things. It's the magician, not the wand. Think about it that way. It doesn't matter what you have. It's how you use it. Distribution. I think there's a lot of different platforms out there. There's heaps of different platforms out there now. You can do your own YouTube and Amazon and iTunes stuff. You can do it all yourself now, which is crazy. So you can do a lot of that yourself. And I've dabbled in that, and it's been quite interesting how that's worked out. But there's heaps of distribution options out there now, which is really good. Sorry to answer all these questions so quickly. And the last one.
No, that's all right. That's all right, man.
What was the last question? Part of that question, sorry, is it like things?
Film festivals, yay or nay? Like, do you?
I think they can be good. Yeah, I think they're a good platform. They're very competitive now, and they're very much, it's who you know, not what you've made. Unfortunately, with a lot of festivals, but you can get lucky sometimes. I've just entered our last film into about 10 festivals. So I'm hoping something happens out of that, but I'm not sure what will happen. But you got to be in it to win.
They're very expensive now, aren't they?
They are, The Film Freeway's taken over. It used to be without a box. I think it's all Film Freeway now. Heaps easy, but it can be expensive. It's save about $1,000 at the end of your production to have to enter.
There's no guarantee it's going to get in that too, so it's a risk. Yeah,
and there's thousands. Like every festival you enter, there's probably about maybe 2,000 to 5,000 films that have entered that festival, which is insane. So you just be in the right place at the right time. It's just part of it, but don't take them too seriously. A lot of the festivals can be quite sort of undermanaged and stuff, and sort of slapped together last minute. There's a lot of festivals too. Make sure you do your research on them because there's a lot of ones that just aren't that great. Unfortunately, they just sort of some people just have them out of their houses. I think they just say it's just an online festival. Just pay us money and we'll watch it and we'll say who wins and not. There's no actual event to go to. It's just an online festival, and they make a bit of money out of it.
Yeah, that's right.
So, just look at the top 20 or whatever they've got each month on Film Freeway is usually pretty good. So yeah.
Yep. And hang on a sec. Just give me a second here.
You did a good summary there, Glenn, of all of them. I think that was really impressive. You answered all of them well.
Quickly, too quickly.
Just making sure. And what are you working on at the moment? What are you working on at the moment, Glenn? Do you want to do a bit of a
finish Ancestry Road? So that I'll still be working on Ancestry Road for the next couple of months, probably just getting that finalised, but that's pretty much done. And I'm working on a movie about video stores next in the late 80s. I want to do like a video store movie. That's my
cool.
My goal, my plan. I think I've got a good idea for it.
Yeah.
I do have a very good idea for it, but it's big and it scares me a bit because I know all the years I'll have to put into it. But that's what I'm hoping to work on. That's what I'd like to work on next if I can. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's very good. Exciting.
Yeah. I think that's it. That's it for the questions, Glenn. So you can head off whenever you want now. Yeah. You want to stick around a bit longer, Matt, and talk a little bit?
I'll do I'll power through them like Glenn did.
I'll leave
you guys jump out, Glenn?
I'll nick off now. Sorry if that's all right. Do I click on the leave button?
That's all right.
Edit this out if you need to, but
I think so.
Thank you so much, Luke. Thanks for having me. It's been great to chat to you guys today. So
that's right, Glenn. No, it's been an honour, mate. It's been a good chat.
Yeah, it's been good. I'll just click leave. But yeah, thanks so much, guys. I'm sure we'll chat again at some point. So good luck with it all. And
no worries. Good luck with everything.
Picnic at the kindergarten. So I'll see you guys soon.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Cool.
No worries,
thanks,
mate.
Guys.
Thanks, dude. Thank
See you,
you.
mate.
All right.
Does the recording keep going, Luke?
Yeah, the recording's still going, so you don't mind sticking around. You can leave whenever you want.
Yeah, I'll just do a couple more minutes. I'll just
Yeah.
power through like Glenn did.
I'll just, yeah.
So advice for first-time filmmakers.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff Glenn said, I was thinking, yeah, it's relatable, similar stuff. But for emerging people, I always think it's important when you're starting out to just get on as many film sets and as many projects as you can, because that's where you'll learn so much from them, whether they're good or bad experiences. You'll learn a lot. So I think that's really important to do that, and not necessarily expect to make any money, really, maybe for the first few years, or not much, because things like making sure you've got savings and money to live off, while you are sort of pursuing your passion. Distribution, I think Glenn sums it up really well, but when you and I started out, it was DVDs and cinema. Nowadays, it's streaming, it's online. There's no excuse not to distribute your films online. YouTube's free, Vimeo's free. You can definitely get your work seen. And obviously, there's streaming platforms. I haven't had any experience with them, but they seem like another option. What was it? Film festivals.
Film festivals, yeah. Do you like them? What do you think?
I think they're really good for adding credibility when you have a film playing at a festival. Even if you not only just getting selected for a festival is amazing, but if you also happen to win, that's even better. It's good recognition to show that you're doing the right thing. But like Glenn said, you don't want to take them too serious. They're not the be all end all. It's not a reflection on your whole career or where you're up to, because there's so many things with festivals where maybe they've already had another application that's similar to your film and it's slightly better in some way, or maybe they cover a similar theme, and it's a lot of luck. Maybe they do know the person that made that one. So you can't take it too personally, but I think they're always worth having a go at. I definitely got to a point though where I had films playing in some pretty prestigious festivals, and I looked back on it and thought it's good to talk about. It's good to have it attached to your name, but the experiences themselves didn't lead to much. But there is the sort of self-confidence and recognition you get from it. And what was the last question?
And the last question is, what are you working on at the moment?
So at the moment, I've got 5 promotional docos that I'm finishing off. It's been a real juggle, but I'm excited to finish those and get them released whenever the companies release them. I've also got a TV show I worked on last year that premieres tomorrow night, which I'm excited to watch. I was filming on that, but I'm excited to see how they edit it together. And I've got a TV show coming up in a couple of months where I'll probably be away from home for a couple of months, but my family can visit, and I'm looking forward to that one.
Oh, very good.
Should be fun. And obviously the making of Zarium still chugging along in the background.
I wasn't sure how much I could talk about that, but no, we've been working on something, haven't we? It's good.
Yeah, it's in the gaps. I keep it moving, but we can talk about that offline.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, very good.
Thanks so much,
Matt.
Thanks for organising this.
Yeah, thanks for coming on and talking with us about filmmaking and directing and all that stuff. I think it'd be good for people to hear this type of stuff. I think got to get it out there.
I really love listening to Richard Deacon's podcast, where he interviews people from all different departments. I think he's a cinematographer, but he interviews production designers and assistant editors and costume and all these different departments. And I find it really interesting. Hopefully this is interesting to at least one person. And
well, as long I hope someone gets something out of it. Then I've done my job.
Exactly. All right.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Luke. Take it easy, mate.
Yeah, I'll catch up with you.
Yeah, catch up with you later. See you, mate.
Yeah, see you, mate. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to give my point of view, my little talk, my little spiel before I wrap this podcast up. Guys, at the end of the day, I hope you all got something valuable from this, even if it's just something small. We're all here to share our experiences. I think we need to share our experiences. I personally feel like in the film industry, there's not enough talk. We don't talk enough of it, and people have to find out the hard way, through different things and things like that. So we can shed some light on it and help someone, it'll be good. I've been doing this for a while, and the other guys have been doing it for a while too. So we have a little bit of experience behind us. We don't know it all. We're still learning, but we're working our way up the food chain. So what I'll talk about, I might as well go back and talk about some of the questions that we didn't. So tips and advice for first-time filmmakers starting off. Any tips or ideas where to start? Film networking nights, etc., etc. I think what's important, something that I've picked up that's important, that I think is important for first-time filmmakers starting off, is networking. I think connecting with creatives, meeting people, working with these people, building a relationship, a trust, a bond, a relationship, a connection with these people that get these people to work on your films and that, and it takes time to build this crew, this body of people that you want to work with and things like that. I think that's a very exceptionally important one that I think of. What else? Just have a go. Just start somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, just even if it's just getting a pen and paper and writing an idea, a film idea or a script, or just some character names or whatever. Just document and write that down. Be thorough. Take photos. Go for drives. Look out and experience and see the world and get inspired. Get creative. What else? Yeah, just things like that. Distribution. So I know the others guys have got more hands-on experience and knowledge with proper distribution, things like that. I've heard a lot of. There's been stories about. I've heard from other creatives, filmmakers, directors seeking distribution, that sometimes the distributors they kind of take hold and control that project. They may not see any money from it or they get small pittance from it. I've even heard that some distributors will want filmmakers to go back and reshoot or refilm different things to fit into their movies, so before they even take it on, things like that. I've heard experiences like that. I've looked into it, but I don't know. I've gone down the whole self-distribution path. I know it's a lot more extra work on myself, but I think the payoff is more. It's there, and a lot more extra work, and I'll probably get. I don't know, but I just feel like that's the best course of action at the moment for me. I'm doing everything. I'm self-distributing. So I'm doing all the DVD covers. I'm, going to have an online store with the website where people can purchase these films. I'm doing my own advertisement. Like I said, a lot more extra work, but I think I've got control of the payout. I just think the payout's there better. I don't know. I know the others, just when they get it out there, they get it out to a bigger audience, they get more reach, they might make a bit more money here and there. I don't know. I'm just winging it as I go, guys. I'm just going down the self-distribution path, and later on I might look at getting like proper distribution later on. But that's my plan for now anyway. Next question is film festivals, yay or nay? Like the others said, I think film festivals have there shouldn't be something that you focus on, but I think they're something that can help benefit your product. Get selected a few times, things like that can help to boost that film up. So it makes it easier for people to to purchase or see this film or whatever it may be, to buy the product, things like that if they know it's good. I've put into a lot of festivals. They're very costly. It used to be without a box, but now they've all moved over to Film Freeway. And I do back in the day, it used to be a lot more extra work. You'd have to actually make physical copies of your movies and then send them to these film festivals overseas, which can be very costly. Some film festivals can range anywhere from $80 to $100 plus or more. So I've spent a lot of money on film festivals over the years, getting the count in there. We've had a few. We've won a few awards. We've been selected in a few festivals. I've picked up the Silver Screen Award and over in Nevada Film Festivals in Las Vegas. Went over for that. So things can happen. What else? But with Film Freeway, you set it up. You set up your project. Your poster, your synopsis, your write up about your about the filmmaker itself, trailer, links to stuff. You upload the movie. You can send it, and you can send it into film festivals. Still, the costs roughly about the same, if not more. I don't know. I saw some film festivals the other day for $80 to $100 plus. There are some cheaper ones. It just varies. You've got to be selective with where you put them in. There's no guarantee that you're going to get selected in every film festival. You might get selected and you might not. So it's a gamble. It's a 50-50 risk. But I think it can help, but I don't think rely heavily on it. You don't need to. I think there's other more important things you can focus on and factor in and stuff like that. Give us a sec, guys. And what am I working on at the moment? At the moment, like I said, I've given you guys updates before on my when I do my vlogs with my phone and that, when I record videos and things. I have let you guys know. I don't want to keep going over and over and over and making video because you get like, oh, I've heard this before. Yeah, get on with it. But at this moment, I have a structure that I'm going by. I'm sticking to, and so it's the website. I'm working on the website now and knock this out soon, hopefully by this year sometime. I was going to try and get it by the early year, but it is what it is. It'll come out when it comes out. It'll, you know what I mean? I don't. Anyway, so that, and then I'm also working on an updated show reel. I'm going to knock that out. That's nearly done. It's got a bit of a story behind it, so it's another one of those. I think you'll enjoy that. And then I've got a normal short film special edition thing with all the audio from the film from start to finish, the music, the audio, the sound design, everything has been redone completely from scratch, and I'm remastering that. And it's like a whole new film. It's really good at the moment. So that's nearly done. And I'm putting that into film festivals. I'm going to do the circuit with it. So I think that's going to do pretty well. It's like a whole new film now. It's like a brand new. It's completely different. And then the Snap Factory, official Snap Factory trailer is coming out after that. That's almost finished. That's almost complete and done. It still needs its grade. I'm getting that done professionally. Hopefully through Post Lounge. Great, colored, corrected, and graded. And then that's going to cost me a little bit, but anyway, it'll be good. It'll be worth it because everything else has been good with it. Looks really good. All the footage, all the structuring's all really good with it. I'm very happy with it so far. And then it just needs its music done, its score done to it, and that's pretty much completed and done. And then the Snap Factory movie, the whole film will be done after that. So that's my that's my my outlook, my structure that I'm living and sticking by now. I'm doing that. I'm knocking all that stuff out. And then I can focus, I can push on with my future with other things, my other films after that, like the event and things like that. And then the Understand Zari and the Understander after that maybe. And then I've got a few little experimental shorts to do and a couple other little things, little experimental scenes and things like that I want to do as well in the meantime. I think that's it. Anyway, guys, look, I'll leave it at that. I think that's about it. That's it for the very first episode of the Indy Directors Roundtable discussions. I'm your host, Luke Launer from Shilling Entertainment. Thanks for watching, and guys, and I really appreciate it. And I hope to continue this series with other creatives. This is the very first time, so it was like I said, a lot of it was just trial and error for me, experimentation, things like that. Yeah, I think it went pretty well. Other than that, till the next news video post, whatever you want to call it. I'm writer, producer, director Luke Launer from Shilling Entertainment, and I am signing off. All right, guys, take care, look after yourself, and God bless.